Welcome to part 4 of What If Naruto Was More Like His Father. Anyway, enjoy the video. Naruto and Jiraiya established a schedule for Naruto's training. Jiraiya would create 2 shadow clones along with Naruto. He would remain with the original, while the other 2 would practice in Fuinjutsu and Ninjutsu. Naruto was already master of Fuinjutsu, so there was not much teach him that he didn't already know. Instead, they were working on new seals that he could use in the future. Not just in the Chunin exams, but against other opponents as well. Naruto's grasp on ninjutsu was pretty solid, not to mention his vast repertoire of them. He knew more C to B rank jutsus rather than the A ranks, and he used them very efficiently. He usually preferred using Suiton and Futon, but his Katan and Raiton were equally good. Jiraiya was training him in a B-rank fire jutsu, Keten, Hanusud, fire style, blazing hands. Since Naruto knew that his opponent was primarily a taijutsu-type fighter, he would have to fight hand-to-hand at some point. But Naruto knew that the Hyuga preferred to stick with their gentle fist. He already had a good repertoire of mid to long-range jutsus to fight. Also, he knew the gentle fist targeted the Tenketsu, the points in chakra network that control the flow of chakra. But just like Tenten, Niji couldn't have found a worse opponent since Naruto didn't have a chakra network, so Niji's fighting style was already null and void. Add to the fact that the Hyuga see learning elemental jutsu beneath someone of their stature, and Niji is totally crushed. The original Naruto was concentrating on increasing the speed of his reflexes in taijutsu against Jiraiya. Naruto found out on the first day of their training that Jiraiya was holding back a lot. Their routing was something like this: first, the Sannin would check whether Naruto's resistance seals were actually affecting him or not. Based on that, he would let it remain or change them to a higher level. Then he would tell him to just defend. Naruto would have impressive bruises by the end of the defensive sessions. After half an hour of relaxation, in which his bruises would get healed, Naruto would be told to try and hit Jiraiya. And every single day for the first week, he was only able to hit the man 5 times at the most. Granted, his fighting style, the elemental fist, was as aggressive as it was defensive, not to mention had a minority of made-up moves that he usually employed to finish a fight. He was still far from landing critical hits on the Sannin. Guess he isn't a Sannin in just name, after all, Naruto thought as he relaxed in the onsen. Today was the first Saturday of the month, and he and Jiraiya did nothing but a small, time-limited spar to evaluate Naruto's skills. Naruto had mastered the blazing hands in a total of just 4 hours, and spent rest of the week trying to incorporate it into his fighting style. Jiraiya had released him early because Naruto was to do his own training in the weekends. And Naruto planned to hit a long overdue task, his father's simulation room. He had 5 more levels to go, and Naruto planned to hit 4 of them in the following 4 weekends. He was confident that he would be able to complete with some, if not full ease. But he would worry about that later. Right now, Naruto felt nothing but exasperation along with resignation as he watched his godfather giggle perversely as he peeked onto the women's side of the bath. After their spar, Jiraiya had suggested they go to the onsen to relax. Naruto, the naive idiot that he was, readily agreed, saying he could use a hot bath. However, Naruto had planned on discussing a few things with Jiraiya about what he learned during the first week of the training month while relaxing. This was the first time he learned that when Jiraiya suggested they relax in a hot bath, he really just wanted to peek on the women. Even though there were only 2 of them on the men's side, Naruto sunk lower in order to hide the fact that he was here with Jiraiya. "Oh ho ho, this is good, very good," Jiraiya giggled lecherously as he gazed on the naked women on the other side. Naruto glared at his back fiercely, making the tiger hand seal. Chains of water rose up and wrapped around Jiraiya, viciously yanking him back into the water. "Can't you stop being a pervert for just a moment and relax?" Naruto dryly asked him as his head came out of the water. Jiraiya looked genuinely offended at the question. "What? That's just not possible. Being a pervert runs in my blood," Jiraiya proclaimed graciously, even pumping a fist to prove his point. As if that's something to be proud of, Naruto grumbled as he got up, wrapping his towel around his waist. If he stayed any longer, he would faint from dizziness. He would hit the simulation later tonight, so right now he had nothing to do. As he walked towards his apartment, he absently wondered, I wonder what kind of training Sasuke is going through. Elsewhere, Sasuke sneezed, causing to slip into the water with his hands still alight with lightning, shocking him. XXXXXXX. Naruto panted as the simulation got over, his opponent lay beaten before him. It wasn't tough, but it wasn't easy either. A wave of satisfaction passed over him as he went through the fight in his head. This time, he had managed to inflict most of the bruises onto his opponent instead of himself. His opponent was crafty, and his fighting style was something Naruto had never seen. He fought almost like he was dancing, weaving around in circular patterns. His hands were almost always on the ground and kicks were inverted, the force behind increased with each maneuver. However, Naruto was able to find the weakness of this style. As offensive it was, only evasion tactics were used by his opponent to escape his attacks. There weren't many blocks, so the upper body's only way to not get hit is to continuously keep moving in an acrobatic way. Naruto, however, was able to land in a few attacks before getting annoyed. His opponent's patterns were too erratic to find an opening and exploit it at the same time. So Naruto himself improvised. An opponent with a style like that can be dealt with many ways, but the option that stood out the most to Naruto was the use of brute force. Up until now, Naruto had only attacked the opponent. However, Naruto enhanced his fist with his chakra and punched the ground hard. The force behind it was not what Naruto expected it to be. A few cracks spread around the impact area, but the force was enough to make his opponent stumble, just for a moment. Just what Naruto needed. In a flash step, he appeared before the attacker and slammed his fist straight into the stomach. The human body isn't strong enough to withstand the amount of force that Naruto put in the punch. Added with the fact that the last punch was enhanced by the blazing hands, and his opponent was out for the count. Naruto flashed into his apartment, groaning and looking forward to a hot shower after the session. He was to start his summoning training from Monday, so that was something to look forward to. He took off all his clothes and grabbed a towel from the rack, entering the bathroom and closing it. He sighed in relief as the hot water poured over him, washing all the grime and dirt from his body as well as soothing his muscles. He stood in there for over 20 minutes, after which he turned off the shower, wiping the water off him and tying it at the waist. Exiting the bathroom, he shut the door and paused for a moment before turning around, eyes narrowing. After a moment, he sighed and relaxed. He proceeded to get dressed and eat dinner before retiring to sleep. He failed to take notice of the crow perched on the lamppost outside his apartment, an ominous Sharingan in its eye socket. XXXXXXX. Yash. You ready to learn the awesomeness that is summoning? Jiraiya questioned loudly, grinning like he knew something Naruto didn't. Naruto just stared at him in a deadpan. Jiraiya began to feel uncomfortable under the deadpan, coughing into his fist in order to maintain his dignity. Alright, summoning is a pretty simple jutsu, with a little amount technicalities. The chakra requirements for each summon differ greatly. Take me for example. If I put a large amount of chakra in the jutsu, I am likely to get a bigger and a stronger summon, like a battle toad, than when I put in a small amount of chakra, which is when I get a messenger toad. You will have to adjust accordingly to your summons, he explained. Naruto had to admit that whenever Jiraiya was serious-like, it was actually possible to see how intelligent he was. Nodding to Jiraiya, Naruto bit his left thumb, allowing blood to come out. He then went through the hand seals and slammed his hand on the ground, pumping a little more than a quarter amount of his chakra. Kuchiyos no Jutsu. While the sealing array spread out from beneath his hands, nothing else happened. Naruto rose an eyebrow in confusion. Jiraiya noticed it and smirked. While not shouting out the name of your jutsus is admirable and very useful as a habit, this one is a special case. You have to verbally pronounce it. Naruto rolled his eyes at that and exclaimed, Kuchiyos no Jutsu. In a large puff of smoke, it revealed that Naruto had managed to summon Takeshi, the boss of foxes. The large summon easily towered over the entire forest they were in, providing a great view to Naruto, who stood upon the fox's head. Jiraiya was gaping at the gigantic summon that Naruto had managed to summon on his first try. Kami, I didn't know that the foxes were this powerful. This guy could easily tower over Gamabunta, and that guy's size is no joke at all. How the hell did Naruto manage to summon him on his first try? And judging by the giant sword, this guy's easily skilled in Kenjutsu. Naruto really did land a treasure with the fox contract, Jiraiya thought in awe as continued gazing the summon. Takeshi blinked when he didn't find any threat in front of him, so he addressed his summoner. Naruto-san? His voice snapped Naruto from his mental dance of victory. Ah, Takeshi-san. I was practicing the summoning jutsu to get used to using it in the future. Takeshi gave a sound of realization, I see. In that case, allow me to give you a little advice. Whenever you use the Kuchiyos no Jutsu, state what type of summon do you want to come to your aid. Battle summons are always on standby, so you don't need to state this for battle summons. But I have to say, it is nothing short of impressive for you to manage to summon me at your age, he complimented Naruto. Naruto blushed at the praise and rubbed the back of his head, chuckling sheepishly, thank you, Takeshi-san. And please, just Naruto is fine. Takeshi chuckled, very well, Naruto it is. And don't hesitate to call me if things get difficult for you, Naruto. He dispelled himself after that, returning to the realm of the foxes. Naruto easily landed in a crouch beside a stunned Jiraiya. What the hell was that brat? Jiraiya almost yelled with wide eyes. Naruto gave him an innocent look, what do you mean? Jiraiya pointed a finger at him, don't give me that look. How the hell did you summon the boss of foxes in your first try? Even I didn't manage to summon the toad boss on the first try. Naruto gave him a confused look, all you have to do is pump the chakra and based on the amount, you get the summon, right? I pumped a significant amount in the jutsu right now. Jiraiya had calmed a little from Naruto's explanation, but was a little curious too. Just how much did you put into it? Naruto shrugged, a little over a quarter of my chakra. Jiraiya nodded absent-mindedly, but then he really registered what Naruto said and whipped around to stare at him. Is he for real? A little over a quarter? Most people his age would have had chakra exhaustion trying to summon the boss and they would still fail. But then again, his reserves are steadily being increased by the seal, so that's that, he thought speculatively. Well, brat, since you have shown that you can already summon the boss, we'll try to reduce the amount to see what you can get. Who knows, you might even get a personal summon of your own, Jiraiya suggested, mentally smirking when he saw Naruto's eyes lighting up at the words personal summon. Naruto grinned at the thought of having a fox partner. That would be so cool. He ignored Kurama's grumbles of I'm right here and cut his thumb, flashing through the hand signs and slamming his hand on the ground. Kuchiyos no Jutsu. A burst of smoke revealed that he had managed to summon a white fox with black markings on its upper body, standing up to Naruto's waist. It had a white tail swaying lazily behind it while it peered up to Naruto with curious green eyes. Who are you? Its tone, a soft tenor, held a hint of curiosity mixed with cautiousness. Naruto grinned and pointed towards himself with his thumb, I'm Uzumaki Naruto, the newest summoner of the Kitsune. Nice to meet you. He watched as the fox's eyes brightened up and almost laughed when the fox introduced itself in a similar manner, pointing towards itself with its opposable thumbs, you are the newest summoner? This is awesome. My name is Raiden, the second son of the boss of the Kitsune and the most awesome Kitsune ever. Pleased to meet you. Man, Naruto had to stop himself from blumping the fox because his voice was just so damn cute. Naruto laughed at Raiden's introduction and said, pleased to meet you too, Raiden. You are actually the second summon I've summoned, you know. Raiden frowned, the second? Who's the first? Naruto smiled proudly, why, your father of course. Raiden's eyes widened, you managed to summon my father? You must be really strong then. Naruto just closed his eyes and nodded, enjoying the moment and completely ignoring Jiraiya, who was gaping at the both of them. Kami, he's just like Naruto, he thought as he observed them converse. Raiden seemed come to some realization as he tugged at Naruto's lower, gaining a curious look from the boy.
Naruto, do you know what this means? You summoning me?
His voice seemed to grow with excitement as he voiced his question.
Naruto raised a confused eyebrow. No, what does this mean?
Raiden shook his head with wonder. It is a requirement to summon the boss of any summoning clan after you sign the contract, Naruto.
However, whomever you summon next becomes the summoner's personal summon.
He finished with a significant amount of glee in his voice.
Naruto also started grinning, and at the end of his explanation, he engulfed the fox in a hug, burying his head in his fur. Which means you are my personal summons now? We are going to have so much fun together, Raiden.
The fox also laughed in happiness, and it was then that Naruto remembered something. Oh, Raiden, I almost forgot. This is my godfather, Jiraiya, he introduced the smirking man sitting behind him.
Finally remembered me, huh, Naruto? You are the Toad Sage?
Raiden's whisper had the unmistakable feeling of awe. Jiraiya grinned and exclaimed, Indeed I am. Raiden began to shake in excitement. Kami-sama, I can't believe you have such cool company, Naruto. This is the first time I've met a summoner of the Toad clan, let alone a sage. Jiraiya was basking in pride that even the summons he hadn't heard of before seemed to know who he was. But that feeling of pride quickly shattered when Naruto spoke. Seriously, he's not that cool, Raiden. He's a pervert.
Jiraiya shouted in defense, sounding extremely offended. Wrong. I'm a super pervert. However, Raiden shook his head, amused by the antics of the large man. I'll remember that in the future. It is nice to meet you, Jiraiya-sama.
Turning to Naruto, he poked him in the chest. Naruto, don't you forget about me.
Summon me whenever you can, okay? Even if you just want to hang out or talk. I've been told I'm a great listener. Naruto smiled and nodded, rubbing Raiden's head.
Raiden then dispelled himself back to the summoning realm.
XXXXXXX.
The next 2 weeks were spent like the first week, since Naruto already had an excellent grasp on his summoning.
So they spent the next 2 weeks speeding up his taijutsu and adding jutsu to his arsenal.
Naruto had learned 4 more jutsu, 1 jutsu for each of his affinity, and had improved his fighting speed considerably. For lightning, he had learnt Raiton, Reikokausen no Jutsu, lightning style, lightning beam technique, a B-rank jutsu. He had found this jutsu in the Night Aim's library. A beam of lightning twice as wide as his arm. If it hits the target will experience a fantastic amount of pain and will be heavily stunned, not to mention unconscious from the pain. Even if it's a near miss, the effects will be of some effect due to small bolts of lightning escaping. While he won't be using this against Niji, it was still a very useful technique for live capture. For fire, he had learned Katon Menamayanai High, fire style, invisible fire, a B-rank technique Tobirama had created with the help of someone named Uchiha Kagami. After molding chakra, Naruto would expel a single, colorless beam of gas from his mouth. However, upon getting in contact with a target, the gas will spontaneously combust, and the strength of the resulting explosion will depend on how much chakra Naruto put into it. For air, he learnt the futon, Ripushu, wind style, gale wind palm, a C-rank technique created by someone in the Senju clan. After forming the needed hand seals, the user basically had to send an open palm thrust towards his opponent, which is capable of causing severe injury. Naruto can also use this in conjunction with a thrown weapon to increase its power. For water, he learned not a jutsu, but the secret behind creating water out of thin air. It was what Tobirama was known for throughout the entire shinobi world. Usually, condensation is used to derive water from vapors. However, Tobirama did not have the luxury of creating vapor in the middle of a battlefield and then condensing it to form water. Therefore, he would cleverly saturate the air around him with his chakra, without losing control of it, so that whenever he was in need of water and no water body was near, he would simply mold the chakra-saturated air into water, thus negating the disadvantage that water could not be used without water bodies. What was amazing basically meant turning a battlefield into a geographical advantage. With your chakra saturating the air, Tobirama could literally use it to do anything. This is what I could come up.
A bit of BS, so please bear with me. For Fuinjutsu, he completed the chakra suppressing seal he was working on with Jiraiya. He made it so that upon application, the chakra of the target would be completely locked. Which meant they were completely helpless unless they had something to outrun him without chakra. Another thing he came up with was slapping resistance seals on his opponents. Simple, but very effective, something he would use against Niji. All in all, with the help of his shadow clones, Naruto spent almost a week to entirely master the first 3 techniques, meaning using them with the minimum amount of hand seals. He was still working on Tobirama's chakra saturation technique, using it discreetly without letting your enemy know. However, it's useless against a censor. It was the last remaining week of the month, and Jiraiya had said that the last week was fully for Naruto train himself. That was good, since Naruto, with his nigh limitless spamming of shadow clones, had the chance to test his learnings in a battle simulation. It was the second day of the last week and Naruto was taking a water break, his t-shirt and jacket having been discarded for a while to avoid them from getting drenched in his sweat. "So, what do you think of my training, Raiden?" he asked after taking a sip of water. Raiden watched his summoner, sitting some distance away. "Well, it's definitely intense." "You sure work hard for all your genius, Naruto," he dryly commented. When he was first summoned, he was delighted when Naruto asked him to give him some company while he trained. He had then proceeded to watch with wide eyes as Naruto summoned an army of around 500 shadow clones for an all-out battle against them. Raiden had asked, just out of curiosity, that how much chakra had Naruto just spent making the clones. "I'd say, a full 3/4 of my total reserves," Naruto had replied after a moment. Raiden had dumbly nodded and watched as Naruto proceeded to decimate his army. He had paid close attention to what Naruto had said and was doing some mental calculations. If Naruto spent a whole 3/4 of his chakra, that meant he would be close to light chakra exhaustion if he spent any more. But Naruto had explained it to him that whenever shadow clones are dispelled, the chakra returns to the original, along with the memories of that clone. Raiden observed that Naruto had started with taijutsu, destroying a dozen clones at first. Then, he used an elemental jutsu, whether it be fire or air or water or lightning, to destroy another group. He would then switch back to taijutsu, then use a jutsu again. It was a cycle, Raiden realized after intense observation. Naruto never used any jutsu if he didn't have sufficient chakra to not collapse into exhaustion. But the funny thing that Raiden realized was that he couldn't understand whether Naruto was losing chakra or gaining it back. If it was simply taijutsu, Naruto would be gaining all the chakra back without any expenditure of his remaining reserves. But since he occasionally used a jutsu, it was hard to determine. In the end, he just presented Naruto with his theory and asked his opinion for it. Naruto had thought for a whole 5 minutes and then replied, "I'll put a pin on it, but I'm not thinking about it now." Turns out, Naruto was mentally exhausted as well, because he gained the memories of 500 clones in just 2 hours, so he won't be exerting anymore today. Raiden was surprised he had remained conscious after all that stress. Naruto chuckled, "You say it like geniuses don't have to work hard." To his surprise, Raiden nodded, completely supporting his point. Naruto corrected him right then. "Raiden," he said softly, sitting beside the fox so that his head was on Naruto's thigh, "that is a belief which isn't right. People misunderstand what genius actually means. They believe that someone who achieves something great without appearing to work hard is hailed as a genius. But that's not true. Genius is just a great capacity for hard work. Take me for example, I have excellent chakra control, which allows me to grasp jutsus very quickly. But learning jutsus and mastering them are 2 totally different things. It is my genius that allows me to grasp concepts so quickly and easily." He stroked Raiden's head tenderly, having the fox's undivided attention, "but only through hard work can I master them completely. That is what genius is. Genius is the beginning of something great, but it is hard work that sees you through the finish. Genius is nothing without hard work." Raiden gazed at Naruto with wide eyes, who just looked at him with a small smile on his face. The fox could only shake his head in awe as he began to see Naruto in a new light. "I always thought that geniuses never have to work hard,"
But I never looked it from your point of view, he mumbled, his head resting on Naruto's thigh. Naruto was wise beyond his years, that was for sure.
Why, you got some genius you are competing against? Naruto inquired.
Raiden just sighed and took comfort in Naruto's scratches behind his ears. My elder brother, Toshi, is a part of the trackers of the Kitsune, and he is regarded a genius in almost every way. He already has gained 2 tails and is close to achieving the 3rd. My family always says I should be more like him, he grumbled.
He sounds interesting.
Trust me, he's a douchebag, Raiden replied as they collapsed into a peaceful silence. While Naruto wanted to say something, he kept quiet, not wanting to interfere in what was clearly a family matter. Raiden, on the other hand, was thinking about what Naruto had said. If what he said was true, did Toshi really work that hard to be where he was? Was he just seeing the tip of the iceberg? More importantly, if hard work was the key, was he not working hard enough? The questions plagued his mind for a while as Naruto kept scratching his ear. So lost in their thoughts they were that they didn't even notice the presence behind them. The sunset looks really beautiful from here, a female voice commented from behind them.
Their reactions were instantaneous.
Raiden was on his hind legs on an instant, taking the offensive stance of the Kitsune fighting style, a snarl displaying his sharp teeth.
Naruto himself had whipped 2 of his kunai into his hands in an instant, coating them in wind chakra and getting into his usual offensive stance, muscles tensed for any action.
Only when he got a good look at the speaker did he relax.
Raiden, relax. She's a friend, he sighed.
Raiden looked at his partner before relaxing, turning his eyes onto the girl.
Temari looked at both of them with something skin to amusement.
She inspected the fox, then Naruto. Based on what she had seen from the last 5 minutes, they seemed to be pretty close. She had also gotten a good look at the bare upper body of Naruto, both front and back, and she had to admit, he was definitely hot, hotter than most of the males she had seen. She marveled at how defined his muscles were for his age. His chest muscles were clearly developed for someone his age, not to mention his abs. The perfectly chiseled six-pack caused her to blush deeply, imagining not-so-straight thoughts about her and Naruto being in an intimate position, being embraced by his powerful arms.
How can I help you today, Temari?
The voice broke her out of her thoughts and she desperately tried to regain control of her blush. Naruto and Raiden, who now was a little taller than Naruto's shoulder on his hind legs, looked at her quizzically. Raiden turned to Naruto and looked at his face, as if looking for something. He smirked when his nose picked up traces of arousal from both Naruto and Temari.
If he was smelling correctly. Naruto, is she your girlfriend?
He bluntly asked, not even hiding his smirk when both of them turned to him. Temari looked at him with slight anger, her blush not receding at all.
Naruto looked at him with wide eyes of disbelief and a slightly open mouth.
Temari regained her wits faster than Naruto, who still looked agape at his partner's suggestion. She almost swung her fan at Raiden. That was as far as she got when she stopped when Naruto got in front of the fox, holding a palm up and a small smile on his face.
It was a joke, Temari. He's a bit of a joker.
Turning his face so that he faced Raiden and Temari couldn't see him, he gave a death glare to Raiden.
The fox would have been intimidated greatly if not for the slight blush on Naruto's face. Go back, Naruto mouthed.
Raiden winked at him and mouthed back, all the best, before going back home. Naruto barely resisted from bashing the fox's head. He took a deep breath and turned back to Temari, whose eyes were a bit lower than his. He became acutely aware for the first time that he was naked above his waist. He tried to salvage the situation with some light flirting. You see something you like? He saw as Temari's eyes snapped to his and had to hide his smirk at the embarrassment swimming in her eyes. He then saw her take a deep breath herself and calm down. She then smirked and replied in the same, light flirting tone, don't mind if I do. And it's quite a sight. She kept her smirk from widening when she saw him look away. Naruto decided to address the issue, so, any reason why you are here? He walked towards his t-shirt and jacket. He quickly got dressed and faced her, arms folded. She put one hand her hip, her smirk turning into a smile. I just wanted to say, nice job in the prelims.
You gave the dog boy quite the beating.
Naruto smirked and shrugged. I had something to settle with him, that's all.
And your fight was something to see as well.
I feel bad for my fellow Konoha nin, he complimented, sitting down.
He was surprised when Temari walked and sat down in front of him as well, a little closer than what was appropriate.
But I'm not complaining, he mentally smirked. She shrugged, thank you for the compliment, but I believe it was just an unlucky matchup for her.
Naruto nodded in agreement, having come to the same conclusion as before.
He thought if he should ask her what was the Jinchuriki of Tsunade doing in a foreign village, especially during something as important as Chunin exams, but refrained. He could ask her later.
Temari looked at Naruto closely.
He was quite relaxed, but his position was such that he would be able to react instantaneously if she were to attack him now.
Speaking of which,
say, would you care for a spar? She asked, causing Naruto to raise an eyebrow. He gestured to himself, as you can see, I have just finished today's training, so I'm quite tired.
He watched her give a silent ah, but the disappointment was clear.
He had to give her points though, she was quite bold in her attempt at trying to learn what his trump cards were.
Too bad.
But, her head lifted up, I wouldn't mind a short taijutsu spar. His smirk told her exactly that he knew why she asked for such a request. He hadn't said it, but he already knew why she was there.
No point in hiding now, though.
You are irritatingly smart, she grumbled, causing him to chuckle. He got up and held out a hand for her to get up. She looked at it for a moment and scoffed, but grabbed it nonetheless, allowing him to pull her up. Naruto looked down at the hand he held and just felt it for a moment. It was a bit smaller than his own, yet it fit perfectly in his own. He heard a small cough and looked up to see Temari's blushing face in a scowl. He immediately let go of it, a blush creeping up his face. He realized how creepy he must have looked. He cleared his throat and gestured behind him, shall we?
That's how the next 4 days went. Naruto would summon hundreds of clones for an all-out battle to improve his application of newly learned skills and techniques, fight for over 2 hours and then relax. Temari would come by sometime in the evening and they would spar. Naruto usually limited the spars with taijutsu so as to not accidentally reveal some of his tricks.
Temari had caught on as well, and didn't protest at all, preferring to keep her tricks a secret as well. They would make small talk after the spar, and then Naruto would offer to escort her back, but she would playfully refuse every time. Naruto always thought that she was being observed, which is why she refused every time.
She didn't want to be seen getting too friendly with a Konoha nin.
Today was Saturday and so, Naruto planned to hit the simulation room one last time before the Chunin finals. He had already completed till the 5th level, each time more difficult than the last. But every level gave him ideas on where to improve, which he practiced all week and apply it onto the next level. So this is why Naruto was at the apartment right now, sitting on the floor of his bedroom and looking at the 30 kunai in front of him. He had already imprinted the seals on the handle of the tripronged kunai. One was the Jutsu Shiki for the Hiraition, and the other was the seal he had developed so that the kunai could be stuck on the surface of water as well, allowing him to use them in the areas where water bodies were. You seem to be thinking something about last night, Naruto, Kurama commented from within. Naruto kept gazing at the kunai as he replied, last night, I can't figure out why they are doing this.
Flashback.
Late last night, Naruto was sitting on top of his father's head, idly wondering on how the villagers would react to his reveal.
I can think of 2 things.
Either they would start worshipping me, or the villagers who have some morals left in them would feel guilty enough to commit suicide based on the reason that they tortured the son of their beloved Yondaime for years.
What do you think, Kurama?
A chuckle sounded from within his mind. You know how the villagers are, Naruto. They would probably try to suck up to you after knowing just who you are, but I wouldn't mind witnessing the second option.
What about you? Which one do you prefer? Naruto sighed at Kurama's insinuation, I don't prefer either one.
I would actually prefer if they just treated me like any other villager, but that won't be happening anytime soon, considering I'm the heir to 2 major clans of Konoha, Lord if I make Chunin.
Kurama huffed, you humans confuse me terribly. An excellent opportunity for you to crush them beneath your heel for what they have done to you, and you are considering letting them go? I would have made a meal out of them if I were you.
Naruto chuckled, I don't see what's wrong in being the better man, Kurama. Kurama was about to say something when he sensed an influx of chakra about 2 miles away, along with negative feelings.
Naruto, can you sense that?
Naruto raised an eyebrow but spread out his senses nonetheless, sitting up straight when he too sensed the amount of chakra being molded.
Just who was molding a Chunin level amount of chakra at this time in the night?
Making a half-ram seal, he used a series of body flickers to get where the chakra signatures were.
When he reached there, he was horrified what he witnessed.
He saw the prelims proctor, Gekko Heiate, locked in a battle with the Sanjonin, Baki, if Naruto remembered correctly, and was losing, badly.
He had numerous injuries on his person.
If that blade of wind cut him, Heiate could kiss his life goodbye.
He immediately acted.
First priority was to get Heiate to the Hokage Tower. Baki held a blade of wind in his right hand, the other hand holding the sword of the proctor. He had to admit, Heiate was exceptionally skilled at kenjutsu and had almost gotten him, but his sickness slowed him down terribly, allowing Baki to gain the upper hand.
Try stopping this blade of wind.
He was about to shove it into Heiate's chest when a blur grabbed Heiate and dodged, making Baki miss completely. Baki had just enough time to turn to his left, where he had seen the blur go, to witness Heiate disappearing in a blue flash. He cursed under his breath.
Damn it, he escaped. Kazekage-sama won't like this.
He vanished in a wind shunshin to inform his leader. The thought of the flash completely missed him.
Naruto appeared in the Hokage's office, surprised to see the Hijiji still working at this time of the night.
A and Bu surrounded him in an instant, the only reason not skewering him because he still held Heiate in a fireman's carry. Hiruzen immediately stood up, Tora, get Heiate to the medical wing of this tower immediately.
The ANBU stepped forward, took Heiate from Naruto and vanished.
Hiruzen turned his attention to Naruto and spoke in a commanding voice, report. Naruto straightened up and narrated what happened. At the end of his report, Hiruzen sighed heavily and sat down.
I didn't know it was this bad. Naruto asked in slight confusion, what do you mean, Hokage-sama?
Hiruzen folded his hands and rested his chin on it. Naruto, on your suspicions, I assigned Gekko Heiate to keep a watch on Yakushi Kabuto.
He was to report me any unusual activity that concerned the target.
It seems that tonight is the first time he witnessed something significant, but was discovered and was likely going to be killed in order to keep the information from being discovered. He looked Naruto in the eye. It is most likely that Konoha is facing the possibility of an invasion from Suna. Naruto folded his arms. I didn't know Suna had enough manpower to take on the strongest of the 5 on its own.
In fact, from the books that I've read, Suna is the weakest of the 5. Hiruzen shook his head. I know the Kazekage well enough to understand that he's not stupid enough to make such a bold move. Which means he has an ally.
He had a suspicion as to who it was, but that was for him to deal with.
Naruto nodded. That would surely be the case, but we can rule out the possibility of Kumo, Iwa, and Kiri attacking. Kiri is still wrapped up in a civil war, Iwa is still recovering from the defeat in the last war. Kumo wouldn't want to break the peace treaty you had established over the Hyuga just yet, which leaves.
Hiruzen filled in the blanks. There's a new up-and-coming hidden village, whose genin have participated in the exams.
Otoge Cure.
It is possible, but we don't know for sure.
Naruto, you must keep this meeting a secret. Not a word is to be let out, do you understand? Hi, Hokage-sama. Dismissed. Flashback end.
Why don't you ask your vixen? She might have an answer, Kurama suggested, both half seriously and half innocently.
Naruto absently nodded, until he registered what Kurama said. What do you mean by that?
Temari isn't my vixen, he corrected him in a sputter.
Just what was the kitsune trying to say? Kurama laughed. I'm the only being in this world, Naruto, who you can't fool. I've seen the way you look at her. You want to just grab her and dash. Shut up! He shouted to the being inside him, his face a deep shade of red. He shook his head violently to shake off the train of thoughts Kurama had started. He couldn't imagine himself pinning her to a wall. He banged his head on the floor to clear it. Why did you suggest it? These thoughts are hard to get rid of, you know. Kurama, the bastard, just laughed heartily.
Naruto decided to eat at Ichiraku tonight, just because he felt too lazy to cook dinner. Kurama grumbled from within, saying that he always made his clones cook.
Naruto easily blocked him out.
Gathering and sealing the kunai up in a scroll, he put the scroll in his closet and stepped outside his building. Leisurely walking in the direction of the ramen bar, he was surprised to see Temari about 100 meters from him, looking rather annoyed. She seemed to be searching for someone, and Naruto had an inkling as to who she was searching for. Naruto observed her looking around before catching his mop of blonde hair and marching in his direction, scowl firmly etched onto her face and anger rolling off her in waves. He sighed and steeled himself, for he knew what was about to come. Temari reached him quickly and stopped in front of him, hands on her hips.
The anger was visible in her eyes. Where were you today? You missed our spar. Naruto didn't know if he should feel afraid of her or amusement about whether how cute she looked when she was angry.
So he just held up his hands in defense. I know, but I have a legitimate reason for missing it.
Temari folded her arms. Then let's hear it.
Naruto put his arms in his pocket and thought on how to tell her about his simulation fight this night. You see, he grinned at the blush that came on Temari's face. Since Monday is the day of the Chunin finals, my sensei wanted to have one last fight to test my skills. So he told me to rest the whole day to be in top condition for our fight. The lie came out smoother than what he thought. And it was partially true. Level 6 was no joke, and Naruto wanted to be in peak form for it.
Naruto got an idea. How about as an apology, I take you out for dinner? He didn't even stutter this time, he thought proudly.
Temari thought that it was a lie, but she couldn't fault for his sensei having to evaluate his student one last time before the exams, so she believed it. She blinked at the sudden question, and a smirk spread on her face.
She took a step closer to him. Is this another date, Naruto?
Naruto smirked as well, internally jumping in joy, and took a step forward himself. Their faces were inches from each other, and he could vaguely feel the air she was exhaling. It was a unique, sweet and salty flavor. Only if you want it to be, he whispered huskily. He vaguely remembered that they were in the middle of a market. He, however, didn't expect Temari to lean forward so that her lips were a hair's breadth away from his own.
Oh, I do, she returned.
She was surprised when Naruto suddenly backed away, grinning playfully. Before she could feel hurt about her advances being rejected, an arm was draped across her shoulder, pulling her close. She yelped and steadied herself against what she felt to be Naruto's upper body.
Then I really hope you don't mind if we go to Ichiraku.
If I had known, I would have planned earlier. Naruto tried to play it smooth.
It was a risky move, pulling Temari into a side hug.
He had expected to be bashed in the head by her fan, but when she didn't, he relaxed and simultaneously celebrated inside his mind.
She likes me.
Kurama felt nauseous at how much joy was filled in that single thought. For a being of hatred such as himself, joy was his kryptonite. So he just tried to ignore it as much as he could. Such sappiness didn't suit him. Naruto kept his arm around Temari's shoulder and started walking in the direction of the ramen bar. Temari had to adjust her arms, so she just put one hand on his side.
I really don't mind, she coolly replied.
But she was barely keeping from letting a goofy smile spread on her face. She knew she liked Naruto, to the point of having an intense crush on him. But being in such close, physical contact with him only after knowing him for only a short time was almost overwhelming. The trip was short, lasting only 5 minutes. Just when they were within 50 meters of the bar, Naruto removed his arm from her shoulders, instead enveloping her hand in his own, giving it a small squeeze. He gave a warm smile to Temari, who blushed lightly, but returned the smile and squeezed back. They entered the ramen bar, and Ayam was the first to spot them, and then she spotted them holding hands and smiling. She promptly squealed in happiness, increasing the blush on Naruto and Temari's faces, but neither let go of each other's hands.
Tochi came running out of the back in response to his daughter's squeal. When he saw the reason for her squeal, he himself grinned in parental pride. Naruto. So you finally made it official, I see, he commented. Naruto and Temari blushed even more at this, but Naruto was the one who spoke. We haven't, actually.
But I will in the near future, he said with a wink towards Temari, managing to somewhat reduce his blush. Temari, however, just barely kept from hitting him for embarrassing her. The only reason she didn't because of what Naruto said. Ayam clasped her hands together and sighed dreamily. Oh, you two look so cute together.
Naruto and Temari slid onto the seats, side by side.
They gave their orders, but when they were served, they were surprised by Tuchi's announcement.
Today's meal is on the house.
Think of it as a congratulatory gift from us, he added a wink in Naruto's directions. Naruto and Temari tried to deny that they weren't in a relationship yet, sounded in both of their minds, but Tuchi easily waved their sputters away.
Trust me, he said, adults know it when two people are meant to be together or not.
That sealed it. Naruto and Temari and both reached the peak of embarrassment after hearing that statement, but there was nothing they could do until they finished their meals. Deliberately avoiding meeting each other's eyes, they quietly finished their meals and got out of there. Temari was the first one to break the silence between them. Those folks are weird. They kept teasing us all the time, she grumbled in annoyance.
Naruto sheepishly rubbed the back of his head. Don't be like that.
They are some of the very few people in the village that care about me. That sparked Temari's interest. She didn't know Naruto only had a small amount of people close to him.
What do you mean when you say, some of the very few?
It was a question of curiosity, so Naruto couldn't fault her for that.
But the memories of years of loneliness resurfaced, and some of that sadness must have shown on his face, for Temari hastily backtracked. You don't have to answer that if you don't want to.
Naruto waved away her apology. It's okay, you were just curious.
But if you don't mind, I'd like to keep the answers to myself.
His tone was soft, but the request was clear in his voice. Temari nodded, but wondered just what had happened to Naruto for him to get so sad so early in his life. She couldn't help but compare Naruto and Gara in that aspect, both of them shunned by the village in some way. She felt for him, just like she felt for Gara.
Gara had been chosen by their father to bear that particular burden of a bijou.
Because of that, everyone in the village had ostracized Gara in the extreme. Their father felt that Gara was too dangerous, which is why he hired assassins to kill him.
That was the last straw for Gara.
He became cold, so cold that the slightest provocation would cause him to kill someone, without batting an eyebrow. She tried to show him that she still cared for him as his older sister, but the distrust was so much deep-rooted into him that he distanced himself even from her.
However, Naruto wasn't like that.
He was willing to trust others, like her.
But another problem lay in front of her.
If tried to comfort him, it would just be a lie, for they would be standing on the opposite sides of a war just 2 days later. So she just held his hand, trying to give what little comfort she could. Naruto was surprised when he felt a warm hand holding his own. He saw Temari smiling at him, and he smiled in return, knowing that she was trying to comfort him. He turned his eyes back forward and saw an alley coming up. He felt extremely bad for what he was about to do, but as a shinobi of Konoha, the village came before everything, even personal feelings. So he pulled her into the alleyway, earning a surprised yelp from her. However, she was well trained. Her reflexes were fast, but nowhere near his own. He immediately grabbed her right hand with his left, pinning it above her head. Just as her left reached for her fan, he grabbed it with his right and forcefully pinned it alongside her other hand. He positioned himself carefully but swiftly, putting his legs slightly in between of her two legs so that his privates would be protected. He kept his head at enough distance so that she couldn't headbutt him and break his nose. All in all, Temari had nowhere to go, no matter how much she thrashed. He raised right leg a little, then gently stamped it on the ground, erecting a special privacy barrier around them. This was one of his father's creation. You can hear the sound from outside, but the sound from within the barrier won't be heard from outside. Also, a pulse of chakra within the barrier won't be able to be felt from outside. Which meant no pulses of chakra could be sent to signal for help. Tricky business to use it with his feet, but thanks to his excellent chakra control, Naruto managed. Temari was surprised just how swiftly he was able to outmatch her reflexes and pin her to a wall. She felt hurt inside, a feeling of betrayal that was overshadowed by the boiling rage. She even felt slight fear with the way they were positioned. She turned furious eyes onto him, but froze when a wave of killing intent passed over her. Looking up into his eyes, she felt afraid when all she saw was a freezing coldness, absent of the complete warmth they were filled with from earlier. The killing intent was not a problem though, as she just brushed it aside. Gara repeatedly used it on them, so the effect was null. She tried to project her rage on him. "What are you doing, you son of a dash? What is Suna planning?" That question stopped her cold, eyes widening. She suddenly had an idea of what this was all about. What? Naruto narrowed his eyes, freezing her with just his stare. She wasn't even thrashing in his arms now. "I don't like repeating myself, so pay attention. What is Suna planning to do?" Temari was so frozen with his stare, the stare that promised a lot of pain if she didn't answer. She hastily sent out a pulse of chakra, hoping someone would sense it and come to her help. "It's useless," he coldly informed her, "I've put up a barrier around us. No one would be able to sense that pulse of chakra. In fact, no one would be able to sense anything, let alone hear." Her hopes of getting help crashed and shattered. She also noticed that the killing intent had increased substantially, causing her to shake a little. "I can easily deduce that Gara is an unstable Jinchuriki." "Yes, I know that," he said in response to her wide-eyed look. "No village would dare send an unstable Jinchuriki into another village. I also witnessed your sensei," he sneered at the word, "attacking a fellow Konoha nin with the intent to kill, possibly to prevent some important information from being discovered by us. So I'll ask again, what is Suna planning to do?" Temari couldn't believe that Naruto knew about what Gara was. Add on to the fact, he had apparently witnessed Baki-sensei attacking a Konoha nin. And she had been captured by Naruto for information on the invasion. They were already on the cusp of being discovered, so she couldn't see many options. Sighing with resignation, she admitted, "I'm sure you know of the new village, Otogekure." Upon seeing his nod, she continued. "A while before the Chunin exams, our father, the Kazekage, was approached by the leader of Otogekure, a man known as Orochimaru." Naruto did not allow Temari to see his shock at that piece of news. He just nodded Temari to continue. "I don't know what they talked about, but father began planning for an invasion a while after their meeting. He informed us that Otogekure would be aiding us during the invasion to cripple Konoha. It was his plan let Gara loose during the invasion. Since Gara has full control of his bijou, he would be set free to destroy the village in his unleashed form. Is that right?" Temari nodded, knowing that the invasion had practically failed, now that she had divulged the information. Naruto released a sigh. "I suspected as much." Temari tried to hide the quiver in her voice. "But why did you question me yourself instead of handing me over to the Hokage?" Naruto removed the cold gaze from her, unconsciously making her relax. He looked back at her with a worried gaze. "I don't think you would have liked being subjected to the interrogation department. Trust me, they aren't nice." Temari wholeheartedly agreed with that. She didn't even want to imagine what they would have done to get the information out of her. She looked up, and it was then she realized their positions. Her arms pinned to the wall, Naruto's legs in between hers and bodies pressed to each other's. Oh, and don't forget that their lips were once again separated by mere inches. A blush of massive proportions came onto her face as she locked gazes with Naruto, who realized the same thing as her. His face also matched the same shade of red as hers as he locked his gaze with her.
An awkward silence descended upon them, which Temari broke after several moments. Naruto, she whispered, trying to think of something to say. But Naruto was on a different track from hers. This was his chance, his moment. And he was, in absolutely no way, wasting it. Not to mention, if he did waste this chance, Jiraiya would beat him to within an inch of his life and then some. So he was going to seize it with both of his hands. SSSHHH. He shushed her softly and leant forward, gently capturing her lips. It was the most pleasurable feeling Naruto had ever experienced. Her lips were soft, lingering with the taste of the ramen she ate earlier, which made her taste all the better. Temari went wide-eyed for a moment, but she closed her eyes in pleasure and slowly returned the kiss, molding her lips with Naruto. She knew it was wrong of her. They were enemies on the opposite sides of a war now. They shouldn't be kissing like this, but she couldn't help herself. She had, ever since the chaste kiss from that day, wanted to see for herself how Naruto's lips tasted like. Naruto felt like he was on cloud 9. He decided to take it a little further and bit her lower lip, causing her to gasp. He took advantage of it and pushed his tongue into her mouth, exploring it. He didn't know why, but he wanted to taste more of her, feel more of her. So he released her hands and put them around her waist, pulling her flush against him. Temari was stunned when she felt something wet entering her mouth and exploring it slowly. It took her a moment to realize that it was Naruto's tongue, but instincts were faster than her thinking. So even before she decided what to do, she was already massaging her tongue against Naruto. She couldn't even begin to describe the pleasure she was feeling. When Naruto released her hands, hers automatically went around his neck, pulling him close and further deepening their kiss. She could feel how warm Naruto was, since they both had practically molded their bodies together. They separated for a moment to take a breath, a string of saliva connecting their mouths. Before Naruto could even begin to think whether to do it again or not, Temari had already connected their mouths again, kissing him with more fervor than the previous kiss. Her tongue aggressively invaded his mouth, exploring it and massaging his own tongue with more force than what his tongue did to hers. Her one hand went up to his head, running through his hair. Naruto did not even think, he just enthusiastically returned her actions. His hands began to wander. First, they explored her back, then they explored her sides, each action gaining a pleased moan or sigh from Temari's mouth. He slid his hands lower, letting the primal part of his brain take control. His left hand wrapped around her waist again, while his right slipped lower and gently squeezed her butt. Temari felt like she was in heaven with all the pleasure she was feeling. In the back of her mind, she wondered whether Naruto was just this good or was it the euphoria of the first kiss. Either way, she wasn't complaining. She was about to break their kiss when one of Naruto's hands gently squeezed her butt. Pleasure racked through her body, and she released a loud moan of approval and pleasure. Naruto, taking it as a sign to continue, gently squeezed her other cheek, being rewarded with another moan. Suddenly, he didn't know why, he decided that Temari was standing a bit lower than what he liked. So he bent a little, taking hold of her inner thighs from behind, and hefted her up, pushing her against the wall, causing her to give out a surprised yelp, but she didn't break their kiss. Instead, her arms tightened around his neck while her legs wrapped around him, locking behind his back, their bodies pressing against each other even more. Temari's dress slid up from her thighs a little, exposing a bit of her thighs and skin for Naruto to feel. Naruto repositioned both of his hands on her clothed butt and squeezed, gaining moans of approval from Temari. They kept kissing like that for 5 more minutes, with Naruto occasionally and simultaneously squeezing both of her butt cheeks and gaining moans of pleasure, after which Naruto finally heard the rational part of his brain that was screaming, "You are going too fast, you idiot. Stop." Temari too, finally felt amidst all the pleasure she was feeling that they were going too far too fast and was about to break their kiss and leave, forcibly if she had to, but she didn't need to. Naruto broke their kiss first, looking at her with reluctance. No words needed to be said by either of them. Naruto gently released her, her legs coming to rest on the ground and his hands coming to rest on her waist, while hers moved to his shoulders. Both of them were breathing heavily, tasting each other's breath, trying to come down from the high.
I think we can both agree not to mention this to anyone. Naruto found his voice first. Temari silently nodded as both of them took a step away from each other, both feeling the lack of touch.
Temari turned and walked away from Naruto, straightening her dress and smoothing out wrinkles when Naruto stopped her with his voice. On the day of the finals, I'll see you on the other side, he said in a whisper, but each word was clearly heard by her. A lone tear slipped from her right eye, which she furiously wiped away. She did not care whether he saw her wiping it away or not. "Good night," she hastily whispered, and in a blink of an eye, she was gone. Naruto was still trying to get his thoughts in order. Absently, he raised his foot and stomped softly on the ground, muttering "Kai" under his breath, releasing the barrier. Only then he gave a reply to the empty surroundings, "Goodbye, Sabaku no Temari." He flashed away after that. He had a simulation to demolish. He realized that he displayed lust on the surface, but deep inside, he knew it. He didn't know how or why, nor did he care. He just knew it. Temari was the one for him. He felt genuine feelings towards her. He didn't know how to describe them. He knew that it was far past the like stage. All he knew was that if he got the chance to hold her again, he would be grabbing it. And he would not let go of her that time. Unfortunately, that was the first and the last moment he would ever have with her, for in just 2 days, they would be on the opposite sides of a war, trying to kill each other. And Naruto knew that he won't be able to do it. He won't be able to kill Temari if she came before him. He had lost her, and the chances of being with her again were virtually impossible. Or so he thought. And, how was it? Man, I sure was extremely nervous while writing out the kissing scene. I might have overdone it, for they are just 13 and 14-year-old teens. But I know the boundaries, and if anything is good, it's worth overdoing, or so I think in some cases. Anyways, leave your thoughts in reviews. And I will be answering some reviews from the previous chapter. Oh, I almost forgot. Oh, make. Jiraiya considered himself as the biggest pervert in the world, and he was damn proud of the fact. He was also won the legendary Sannin, and perhaps the only remaining sage in the world. He was also a damn good teacher, judging from the notable students he had taught. The 3 war orphans from the village hidden in rain, they must have changed their village by now, for the good. Then there was the Yondaime Hokage. The man was in a league all of his own, and Jiraiya couldn't have been prouder of the shinobi that his student had become. But alas, he died too early, even by shinobi standard. Then there was his latest student, Uzumaki Naruto. Jiraiya had seen many young prodigies in his life. Hell, Konoha had no shortage of them. Uchiha Shisui, Uchiha Itachi, Namikaze Minato, Hatake Kakashi, his own teammate Orochimaru. But he had never seen one like Naruto. The boy was unbelievably skilled and powerful for someone of his age. He had impressive chakra reserves, excellent chakra control, intelligence to rival his father, all the makings of a prodigy. So Jiraiya promised himself that he would make Naruto a greater shinobi than even his father. But there was one thing that Jiraiya had failed to pass on to all his students. The art of perversion. Jiraiya had been a pervert since his genin days, and had never given up the habit. When he had taken on Minato as an apprentice, Jiraiya had believed that he had finally found the perfect student to pass his perversion onto. Minato certainly had the looks for it, unlike Jiraiya, and he already had loads of fangirls after him just for that. So it killed Jiraiya on the inside when his student acted all polite and modest and refused to take advantage of it. No matter how much he tried to persuade Minato, the guy had an unshakable will and was already fixated on that petite redhead of his. Not that Jiraiya had any problems with it, in fact he thought that Minato had landed an excellent catch. It's just that he couldn't get any research material out of that couple, no matter how hard he tried. It was with these sullen thoughts that Jiraiya wandered around the village, not even noticing how people were whispering with awe that the famed Toad Sage was walking among them right now. So into his thoughts he was that when he actually looked around him, he found himself walking in a fairly empty Konoha street. Very few people were in the street, and they weren't even wandering, instead just gossiping on doorsteps.
Jiraiya sighed, hopping onto a roof as he surveyed the village. His thoughts shifted to his meeting with his sensei from last night.
Naruto had just saved one of their jonin from being killed by the jonin sensei of the Suna team.
Sensei had instructed him to remain in the village for the time being, since he was convinced that they would be attacked on the day of the finals. That caused his thoughts to shift on to Naruto. A small smile came onto his face. He had no doubt that the kid would thrash the Hyuga in his match, but immediately getting in the middle of an invasion right after his fight? Jiraiya could not say or think anything for certain. A movement was caught in his peripheral vision, causing him to turn to left. His eyes widened with glee upon seeing the sight, and it was all he could do from hooting and shouting in joy. There was his student, in an alleyway across from him, locking lips with the pretty, blonde genin from Suna. Not just any genin, Jiraiya thought, because he was pretty sure that she was the daughter of the Kazekage. Naruto, the son of the Yondaime Hokage, was kissing Sabako no Temari, the daughter of the Yondaime Kazekage. He didn't know whether it was fate or not, but he could care less about it. He wasted no time in whipping out his research notebook, hastily writing into it. Kinky, he giggled quietly, to not alert them of his presence, with a lecherous look on his face after he saw their positions. Naruto had Temari's arms pinned over her head, and both of his legs were in between the female blonde's legs.
Oh ho ha!
This is good. Go my student, go, he mentally cheered his student on. His joy at finding his student making out in an alleyway increased even further when Naruto released her hands and wrapped them around Temari's waist, pulling her flush against him. Temari wrapped her own arms around his neck, deepening the kiss further.
This is the ultimate jackpot. He is all over her. And it's not just a simple kiss. They are eating each other's mouths. He might be my best student yet, and I haven't even begun teaching him about that.
Jiraiya kept his giggle to himself as he gleefully wrote down God knows what in his notebook, not taking his eyes off the couple for a second. He almost broke his cover when he yelled in joy when he saw Naruto grabbing Temari's butt, earning a pleased moan from her. That did it for him. He kept his notebook aside and just watched them with great pleasure. He knew he would remember this forever. He is getting bold, that's for sure. He is doing it as if he has previous experience, but Sensei didn't mention any previous relationships. But judging from Ramon's, she seems to have no problem with him doing that. I'll just jot this down later, right now, I will see to the end of this. A trickle of blood fell from his nose as he continued watching them without any shame. He almost resorted to dancing on that rooftop when Naruto picked Temari up, her legs going on either side of him and locking behind his back as the kiss intensified even more. He is really, really good. I haven't seen something as good as this in years. Oh, my next book will be breaking records. He kept watching, nodding in equal parts of appreciation and glee as Naruto squeezed her but, earning pleasurable moans, back to back. At this rate, he might even get his cherry popped tonight. He was almost disappointed when the steamy make-out session came to an end, but that feeling was overridden by the immense pride and satisfaction he was feeling for his godson for landing such a girl for himself. He frowned, however, when they seemed to separate with solemn faces. Temari left, but not before shedding a tear at something Naruto said. Naruto didn't make her cry, that he was sure of, because the boy had the same feeling of sadness around him as the girl. It must have been something serious for them to get like that after a session such as that, he thought. No one should look that sad after a hot make-out such as that. Jiraiya knew he wouldn't, for he would jump at the chance. But perhaps his reasoning was flawed, for he hadn't had his first kiss in all 50 years of his life. Oh well, time to cheer, or maybe embarrass, his godson by letting him know of his audience. He finally let the giggle he had been holding in for so long loose. Naruto didn't disappoint him. His keen sense of hearing immediately picked up the giggles that he knew were aimed at him. Jiraiya was laughing on the inside when Naruto's face changed to that of horror. The amusement must have shone through his eyes, for Naruto's face instantly went red in embarrassment and anger. Mainly embarrassment though. He leapt towards Jiraiya like a tiger. But his mind must still be addled by pleasure, for Jiraiya dodged like he wasn't even trying.
Jiraiya laughed as he prepared to flicker away. Thanks for the research material, brat. He was gone after that. Naruto fumed as he spread out his senses and easily locked onto Jiraiya. He couldn't believe that his first kiss, more like a makeout session, Kurama so helpfully reminded him, was witnessed by Jiraiya. What was worse was that the man had made research material out of it for his porn books. Like hell, he was going to let that happen. Things like that, no matter how awesome and pleasurable, were supposed to remain private. Naruto flashed straight to his parents' home. He needed something to calm down, something to focus on. His mind was in a haze, with all his rational thoughts and logic buried beneath a storm of emotions he could make no sense out of. This was the first time he was feeling something like this, and his gut instinct was understandably confused. Fortunately, he had Kurama to talk some sense into him. Naruto. Calm down. Take it slowly, step by step. He rumbled in a calm manner, trying to work the panic out of Naruto's system by pushing some of his yang chakra through. He could feel Naruto trying to think this through logically, as he had done with every situation before. Naruto registered Kurama's shouts, and upon hearing the annoyance in his voice, he forcefully shook his head. He took deep breaths, letting each one out slowly. It took him over 5 minutes to calm down enough so he could listen to Kurama. He slowly sat down in the living room sofa, right in front of his parents' portrait. He put his chin on top of his joint hands and listened. Alright, I'm calm now, sorry about that. I just didn't know what to do, he said in a neutral tone, with only a hint of confusion in it. Kurama scoffed, as you should be. I really don't see what's there to panic about. You should be jumping in ecstasy instead, having finally had your first kiss with a girl. Naruto frowned a bit. Maybe you're right. However, even if I kissed her, she is going to be my enemy on the day of the finals. I don't know what I would do. As a shinobi of the leaf, it is my sworn duty to destroy the enemies of the leaf. However, I know that I won't be able to bring myself to kill Temari. And I can't even imagine the treatment a prisoner of Konoha gets. Kurama raised an eyebrow. What you need to do is slow down. It is not up to you to decide what happens to them. That's the job of the Hokage. Your job is to simply stop them from completing their mission, by any means necessary. Naruto thought about it, weighing Kurama's words intensely. He was right, he simply had to stop the Sand from achieving their goal. He figured that he might have to take some lives on the day of the finals, but he could choose to spare some. He got up, his keen mind slowly working out the various possibilities and scenarios as he made his way to the simulation. He already knew that Gara was the biggest part of the opposition's plan, so he would have to neutralize him by any means. If he could stop Gara, there is no other trump card that he could think of that Suna can fall back on. He could choose to spare Temari, as she can't do anything on her own. Her other brother was easy to handle as well. Based on his observations, Kankuro was a skilled puppeteer, but he was also a bit of an idiot. Both were a very small part of the entire invasion, the pawns on the chessboard. He removed his resistance seals and set the simulation to level 6. He stepped inside the room and activated the simulation with the seal sequence. As his opponent formed in front of him, he settled into his stance, eye steely. As soon as the command was given, he dashed forward in a flash step. I will figure out what to do. XXXXXXX. The fight was tough, easily the toughest that Naruto had ever fought. The bruises and sore muscles were the definite proof of that. He winced as he rolled his shoulder, trying to relax it a bit as he exited the room. He had given it his utmost effort from the beginning, trying to end it as quickly as possible. However, he wasn't surprised at all when he was parried blow for blow, jab for jab. Neither managed to gain the upper hand on the other for a whole of 15 minutes. Naruto could not hit his opponent, but he made sure that his opponent couldn't hit him either. It soon became clear that he won't be able to gain the upper hand if he continued like this, so he activated the blazing hands technique. At first, it looked like he had gained a slight advantage, but he was forced onto the defensive when his opponent copied the blazing hands and used it against him just as effectively. Naruto absently fingered the small, burned hole in his jacket as he walked up the basement. The blazing hands had caught him off guard for a moment, which is why there was a burnt hole. But he had managed to put up a successful defense, all the while trying to think up of something that would give him an edge in the fight. The fact that there was no pattern to identify did not help at all. It all came down to this: the only way he was beating this opponent was by catching him off guard, and capitalizing on that hard and fast, give the opponent no time to recover or think up of a strategy. However, it had to be something completely new. Something totally out of the box. It did not escape his observation that the moves he fought in the previous level did not work on the next. So he waited, all the while defending himself from his opponent. It took him the better part of 20 minutes to think up of something that even remotely had a chance of working. Blazing Hands was somewhat based on the tree walking exercise. You have to maintain a constant amount of chakra on your hands or feet, however, instead of it being normal chakra, it has to be Katan. Katan was fire, and fire was weak to water, and vice versa. With this in mind, Naruto improvised. Instead of maintaining Katan chakra, he changed the nature to Suiton. It wasn't difficult at all, if he didn't count the constant attacking on his person. It was no surprise that the blazing hands technique of his opponent was neutralized. But water nature chakra had no offensive capability in taijutsu. But his goal was something else entirely. He maintained the change for only 10 seconds, after which he switched back to Katan. He smirked when he saw his attacks getting neutralized, the same way he neutralized them. His opponent was using Suiton to counter his blazing hands. This was the chance he was waiting for. Without a moment of waste, he had flipped away and charged back. He used the potential of his danger sense to the maximum, slowing down his perception, waiting for the exact moment to strike. When his punch towards the stomach was predictably blocked by a fist, he struck. Red lightning danced across the body of his opponent, sending his electrical impulses into overdrive and spasming his muscles. Naruto had gathered a small amount of his Raiten chakra in his punch. And since the opponent was using Suiton to counter blazing hands, the water only boosted the effect of electricity on his body. Naruto seized his chance. He would have to finish this in one move, otherwise he risked giving his opponent a chance to adapt. He backflipped, enforcing his right heel with chakra to amplify the damage. His opponent went flying in the air, and Naruto smirked when he heard the telltale sound of a bone cracking. But he didn't stop his movements. He jumped a bit and spun counterclockwise, timing his jump such that his left foot made a painful contact with the opponent's gut, sending him flying back. His back struck the wall hard, his head bumping back as well due to momentum. But Naruto was already flash-stepping forward as soon as his kick had ended. He had gathered a large amount of lightning in his fist, making tiny sparks go off in random directions. He struck his fist right in the chest where the heart is. It went right through it, emerging on the other side. The Raiten chakra burned away any blood that would have gathered on the fist if it were a real opponent. As it wasn't, the simulation ended, signifying his victory. The sheer amount of lightning in his hand had given him a high amount of piercing power. The power to cut through almost anything. Naruto did not know, but he had unintentionally recreated something similar to the Chidori, the technique that Kakashi was infamous for. No wonder he didn't get back up, he thought as he prepared to flash away. The simulation had ended after that. His purpose was achieved. He had managed to distract himself from the whirlpool of panic he was going through. Now that his mind was focused enough, he could logically think this through on what he would do on the day of the invasion. And he had decided what he would do. For now, he needed to rest. He had an invasion to prepare for. XXXXXXX. Naruto was sleeping comfortably, a peaceful smile on his face. The sun peeked over the horizon slowly, and as soon as the first rays of the sun touched his face, his eyes fluttered open. He blinked his eyes several times to clear the sleep out of them. He then put his hands behind his head and just stared at the ceiling, attempting to piece together the facts he knew. Okay, here are the facts.
Orochimaru attacked us in the second phase, making it clear that he is after Sasuke for some reason. From what I learned from Temari, the Sand and the Sound are planning a combined invasion on the Leaf on the day of the finals. So it's not just that the Sand and the Sound shinobi will be fighting each other, but the Kage will fight as well. Niji is up against the Kazekage, and possibly Orochimaru as well. That snake just want to see the Leaf destroyed, given that he was denied the title of the Yondaime by Niji. The fact that Niji only cemented the fact that he would never become Hokage by declaring him a missing nin is only the icing on the cake. He wants to see the Leaf utterly destroyed. Naruto frowned heavily at his thoughts. The Leaf was in a very bad situation. He knew that Niji must have organized his forces accordingly upon learning of the invasion 2 days ago, so he only needed to worry about himself. It was finally time to cut loose. He was ready to show the world who he really is, though it will be amusing to see whether the world is ready to know who I really am. Naruto smirked. He completed his morning rituals and was waiting for his clone to finish making breakfast. Today he would be resting entirely, so he could fight in peak condition tomorrow. Which means he had ample amount of time to come up with a plan on how to deal with Gara. He doubted it was simple enough to get close to Gara to apply the 5 elements seal, for his absolute defense was nothing to laugh at. The clone was grumbling about slave drivers when he served breakfast to Naruto. Naruto proceeded to dispel the clone while he ate the pancakes. He began thinking of ways to beat Gara as he slowly ate his breakfast. Taijutsu was out of the question if what Gara did to Lee was anything to go by. Genjutsu was a useless option to use against a Jinchuriki, for the beast inside them would release the illusion for them. That left ninjutsu and fuinjutsu. Gara primarily used sand, which was a glaring weakness for Naruto to exploit. Naruto knew how well Gara could control his sand, but he doubted he could control it well enough when it got soaked in water. Wet sand was heavy. Fire was only good to use if it was hot enough to turn the sand to glass. He could use lightning, but he preferred if it didn't come to that. He would douse Gara in so much water he would be hard-pressed to find enough sand that he could control. Fuinjutsu was something he could use to a great effect. A chakra absorption barrier would effectively trap and drain Gara of his chakra until he dropped unconscious. But that presented another problem. Kurama had told him that the moment Gara falls asleep, Shikaku would seize control and get free. So he would have to deal with a bijou. Thank God for the fox summons, he thought as he washed his plates. He dried them and went back to his room. Gazing in the mirror, he saw his hair and sighed wistfully. A second later, a clone popped into existence, already knowing what to do. He picked up a blade and scissors, and set about to cutting the original's hair. Tears of regret flowed out from his eyes. Why are you cutting your hair, Prime? It is such fine hair. Naruto turned in confusion. Why are you complaining? The clone scowled. I know what you want to do with your hair, and I say it's idiotic because we would look like idiots. Naruto snorted. Who says you have an option? The clone grumbled as he set to cutting the hair, while Naruto remained on guard, ready to dispel the clone in case he tried to shave him bald. 15 minutes later, Naruto gazed at himself in the mirror, smiling as he saw his new hairstyle. He even had his whiskers removed, 4 patches of hair, with a pattern that he had hardly looked good on anyone. He had cut his ponytail, causing his hair to fall around and making 2 jaw-length, spiky ear tails on either sides of his head. He experimentally lifted his right hand and spiked his head forwards. He smiled when the hair seemed to actually spike forwards and stay like that. People are going to get a heart attack tomorrow, he smirked. He went into the bathroom and took a quick shower. I have to prepare some backup for Niji, for he may have to face the Kazekage and Orochimaru at the same time, he thought as he wiped himself dry. What do you have in mind? The sudden deep baritone caused him to blink once. About time you woke up. I was beginning to get worried when you didn't respond to my thinking earlier. Kurama scoffed. You're about 10,000 years too young to worry about me. Anyways, what do you have in mind? Putting on his clothes, he scoffed in return and replied, I'm only a genin. I can only prepare a few hundred shadow clones, nothing else. Kurama thought for a few moments and said, you underestimate your shadow clones. Don't forget, you are a decently skilled mortal of your age. He gracefully ignored the snort from his host, and as such, shadow clones of your caliber can act as a great support for anyone. If you say so, Naruto absently replied as he dressed up as usual. He looked at his hair in the mirror, noting the way in which it formed a spiky mess on his head. He arranged it so it was spiked forward on top of his head. He wondered what to do about his ear tails. He knew that his father, too, had jaw-length bangs on either sides of his head. He could replicate that, but he really didn't want his hair sticking around his face if it got wet with water. He could tie the bangs under his headband, but then it would still stick randomly when wet. What to do, what to do, what to do? It's quite rare to see someone like you, who never pays attention to irrelevant things, fussing over your hair, Kurama slyly commented. Naruto scowled. It's a relevant concern, okay? And when did I ask for your opinion on this anyways? You didn't, I was simply stating a fact, the reply was swiftly delivered. Anyways, I have something that you can try. A bit old style, but you might do some justice to it. 5 minutes later, Naruto was looking over his new hairstyle. Kurama, this actually looks good on me. You do have good advice sometimes. The beast snarled in annoyance, you sure have some nerve, making fun of me like that. Naruto smirked but said nothing, further aggravating the bijou within. He had tied his bangs in the middle with bandages, and then tied his headband over the bangs. He has Ashura's hairstyle. Search for Naruto Ashura hairstyle. He grabbed 2 blank scrolls and his sealing supplies. He felt for the marker he had left on the training spot where Jiraiya trained for the last 3 weeks. He was gone in a flash. Naruto appeared in the clearing, spreading out his senses and confirming if he was truly alone or not. When he had confirmed, he sat down and opened one of the scrolls. Taking out his brush and ink, he started writing seals for a prisoner containment scroll, with a slight alteration. In just under a minute, he had completed writing down the sealing sequence. He inspected it for any mistakes, then nodded upon finding none. Standing up, he made a half ram. Around 200 shadow clones popped into existence. Alright, I want you to divide into 2 groups of 100. Hi! For a second, Naruto feared that the sound of 200 people simultaneously shouting would draw someone's attention. He sensed for any foreign chakra signatures, but found none. Nonetheless, he had to do this quickly. It took him just under 10 minutes, but he managed to seal 1 group of clones into the scroll. Normally, a prisoner scroll is made for dead people who have no chakra. Also, it is made only for 1 person. So Naruto had to tweak the seals a bit so that the amount of chakra that was shaped into his 100 shadow clones did not get disturbed in any way. Also, he also tweaked the seals to allow solid 100 constructs to safely get sealed. He exhaled a breath and did the same with the other 100. In 20 minutes, he had prepared a backup for himself and Gigi. Each backup worth 100 shadow clones. Alright, my work is done for today. Kurama, will my reserves be back to full by tomorrow? Easily. Leave it to me. I might even be able to expand them a bit. Naruto nodded, pleased with the development. All that was left is to wait for tomorrow. XXXXXXX. Temari watched as her sensei paced their room in agitation. She glanced over to the other occupants of the room. Kankuro was cleaning his puppets, but kept a wary eye on their sensei, as if unnerved by his recent behavior. Gara was just simply staring out of the window, arms crossed. No one knew what Gara was thinking all the time, but it wasn't that hard to guess that he was bloodthirsty. All this time, there had been no one who Gara had managed to kill, aside from the second phase of the exams. He was getting restless, and that spelled danger for all of them. Temari thought back to the events of last night and had to vehemently fight off the blush that threatened to cover her entire face in red. That was her first kiss, and it couldn't have been any better. The way they had moved against each other was just mesmerizing. But then the memories of what had happened before their kiss came up, and Temari found it easier to beat back the blush. She had planned to tell her sensei about her being ambushed, but was dumbfounded when Baki told her that they may have already been discovered. There was a loose end untied. Some Konoha shinobi had been spying on Baki's secret meeting with their ally. Baki had almost managed to finish him off, but the shinobi was rescued by someone. Someone so fast that all Baki had managed to see was a blonde blur and a blue flash. Which meant that Temari didn't need to tell him if they had already been discovered.
Baki was getting worried about the next day. The Kazekage had told him that they would be proceeding with the invasion no matter what. So far, the Konoha forces had not shown any signs that they knew about the invasion. But he had a bad feeling in his gut, and his entire shinobi career had told him to always trust his gut. He had no choice but to ignore it and follow the orders of his leader. XXXXXXX. Morning arrived sooner than Naruto thought. He got up, thinking about what would happen today. Today, two things were sure to happen. He was not just going to beat Niji, no, that would be too light of a punishment for what he did to Hinata. He would show him just how little fate meant to him. He was going to utterly humiliate the Hyuga. The chances of him winning were already in his favor with his lack of a chakra network, but he would put effort for Niji. The other thing was the invasion, something that scared Naruto a bit. So many people could die, and those people would not just be the enemies, but his comrades as well. He would do whatever he could to protect his comrades, even if it meant putting himself in the line of fire. He shook his head, wiping that line of thought immediately. He would fight like a shinobi today, fast, deceptive, and ruthless. He already had his plan on how to beat Gara, whether they crossed paths in the finals or on the battlefield. Gara would either lose or die. He personally preferred if it didn't come to the second choice. Getting up, he quickly got ready. He checked and double-checked his hip pouches and holster, nodding when he saw they were fully stocked with what he needed. He put the backup scrolls in the pouches as well, reminding himself to give one of them to Gigi. He tied his headband around his head and tied his hair just like yesterday. He smirked when he saw he looked almost like a mini-me of his father. Today would be marked as the reveal of the legacy of Yondaime Hokage. XXXXXXX. The village was in a buzz, looking livelier than usual, many people noted. However, there was reason to be. Today was the day of the Chunin finals. People chatted happily as they made their way to the stadium, talking about who would win and who they would place their bets on. Of course, most of the buzz was about the last Uchiha. Many people were sure that the last Uchiha would no doubt emerge as the winner of the Chunin exams. It seemed as if the name of Uchiha automatically distinguished them as the strongest. Of course, people had reason to believe that as the last Uchiha was no other than the younger brother of Uchiha Itachi, the greatest prodigy to come out of the Uchiha clan. So, there was a lot of hope placed on youngest Uchiha to perform well. Many other people were rooting for the Hyuga genius, Hyuga Niji. The boy was hailed as the prodigy of the Hyuga clan, and there was no doubt as to how powerful the clan was. A prodigy of a powerful clan such as the Hyuga would no doubt be another favorable contender for the title of the winner of the Chunin exams. Naruto smirked as he made his way to the stadium, ensuring he was out of everyone's sight. It was important for him to not be seen by anyone. He wanted his entrance to be one worthy enough for the son of the Yondaime. As he made his way to the stadium, he paid close attention to what the people were saying. Most of them seemed damn sure of Sasuke's victory, while the others were in the favor of the Hyuga. Others were not even mentioned, which suited him just fine. The more he was ignored, more potent would be their guilt. He wanted the people of Konoha to know just who they were tormenting all this while. As the stadium came in sight, Naruto changed his route to arrive at the back of the stadium. Looking up, he saw the back wall of the stadium looming in front of him. There are still over 5 minutes before the announcements begin, he mused. He sat down to wait, and while he waited, he thought back to what Niji had said during the prelims. Flashback. Naruto watched in horror as Niji stood over the down form of Hinata, who was twitching in pain. No one can defy fate, Hinata-sama. Fate deemed you to be weak, that is why you lost to me. Flashback end. Naruto frowned as he thought back to those words. The amount of scorn Niji held for his sister was unreal. He whispered, "Why do you believe in fate so much, Niji? Just what happened to you to believe in bullshit such as that?" He was shook out of his thoughts when his keen ears picked up an announcement, "All final contestants please get down in the arena." Naruto took a deep breath and stood up. This is it, he told himself. Looking up, he saw that the top of the wall was about 10 meters above the branch of the tree he was standing on. He made a clone, who charged his legs with chakra and jumped, easily vaulting over the wall. XXXXXXX. Shikamaru looked as lazy as usual, but he closely observed his opponents. His opponent, the girl from Sand, looked every bit confident of her victory. But there was a small hint of apprehension in her eyes, which darted around the arena anxiously. He didn't bother looking at Shino. The guy was as stoic as a stone, and never gave anything away. The glasses and high collar of his jacket only made it difficult to read him. The puppeteer from Sand was just like his sister, but unlike her, there was no anxiousness radiating from him. The last guy from Sand was the one that bothered Shikamaru the most. The redhead was dangerous, no doubt about that. Although his expression was stoic, it was betrayed by the sheer amount of bloodlust he could feel from the guy. He still remembered what happened to Lee in the prelims. Gara had not hesitated one bit to kill him with his sand. He was a seasoned killer, one that Shikamaru doubted anyone wanted to cross. From the minute twitches that he could see, Shikamaru deduced that he was eager to get on with the fighting. He looked over to Niji, who was Naruto's opponent. Regarded as the rookie of the year of his batch, Niji was a proclaimed genius of the Hyuga, who were known for their deadly and unique taijutsu. While a formidable opponent, Shikamaru doubted he would win against Naruto. He knew that Naruto was powerful, but he had the feeling that Naruto had yet to show what he was fully capable of. Speaking of, he looked around, trying to find his blonde friend. Him and Sasuke, both of them were absent from the lineup, as well as the audience stands. If they didn't arrive right now. Troublesome, he muttered. The proctor, a different one from the prelims, was standing in front of their lineup. A lazy one, from what he could see. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Chunin exam finals. I am Shiranui Ganma, the proctor of this stage. The matches will be as follows: Uzumaki Naruto vs Hyuga Niji, Uchiha Sasuke vs Sabaku no Gara, Aburame Shino vs Sabaku no Kankuro, and Sabaku no Temari vs Nara Shikamaru. Turning his attention to the lineup, Ganma continued, "The rules are the same as preliminaries, however, whether you win or lose doesn't matter. Your promotion will be decided on the basis of your skill, your strategy, and execution." Stands. Sakura looked worried as she tried to spot her two teammates. Ino, who was sitting next to her, said, "Where do you think are your teammates, Sakura?" While she still believed Sasuke would win the finals, she had gained a healthy amount of respect for the blonde Uzumaki, ever since she suffered the humiliating defeat at his hands. The ease at which she handled her told her how pathetic she really was. Also, it was evident just how much he was holding back from absolutely thrashing her. Sakura shook her head worryingly, "I don't know." "Where are you, Sasuke-kun, Naruto?" A sound coming from above the finalists caught hers, as well as every person's attention. Arena. The proctor was just about to speak some more when a sound above them caused everyone, including the audience and the Kage, to look up. In a puff of smoke, a small object fell right in front of the assembled genin. It was revealed to be a kunai, but not just any kunai. A three-pronged kunai. There was a collective gasp among the audience when they recognized what it was. Ganma had wide eyes as he stared at the kunai, being reminded of the only person in the entire nations who used to wield these. Before he could think anything else, a person appeared in a blue flash. A pin-drop silence washed over the entire stadium as everyone got a good look at the person. Kaga box. Hiruzen stared in awe as the person was revealed to be just who he thought it would be.
And Kami, he looked just like his father.
Minato, you would be proud of who he's become.
Beside him, Orochimaru was seething. His fists were hidden from view, so that no one could see that they were clenched tightly.
Uzumaki Naruto, it is not possible for anyone to master that jutsu in just a month, which means you knew it well before, and you knowingly held back against me? Very bold. But then he smirked, if you weren't the Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi, I would have marked you instead of Sasuke-kun. To have that jutsu in my arsenal, I would have been unstoppable. Stands.
Everyone's eyes were at the point of bulging out when they saw the kunai used by their beloved yandame being thrown in the arena. Everyone had gasped collectively, and had jumped up on reflex when the person who had likely thrown the kunai had appeared.
It couldn't be, it just couldn't be, were the thoughts of everyone.
They were filled with disbelief, trying to deny what was right in front of their eyes.
But no matter how much they wanted to, it was simply undeniable.
Spiky blonde hair, which was no longer tied in a ponytail, but in a style that was painfully reminding them of a similar blonde. 2 jaw-length spiky bangs, although tied beneath the headband and the bangs themselves tied around the middle, there was no mistaking just who the blonde Uzumaki resembled so much.
He was almost a literal copy of Namake's Minato, with only his hairstyle distinguishing from the famous Hokage. The yandame couldn't return from the dead, which left only one conclusion.
To think that the demon container was also the son of the yandame. The crowd exploded in mutters, exclamations of yandame, mostly drowning any other verbal exclamation.
It was something that no one was expecting to see.
No one knew that the yandame had a legacy, and now that they thought about it, it was right in front of their eyes all the time. Guilt began to creep into every Konoha villager about how they treated the boy, who was almost royalty considering just whose legacy he represented.
Is that Naruto? He looks so hot. Ino cried out as she hungrily looked at Naruto.
Then she closely looked at Naruto. While he had only changed his hairstyle, he closely resembled a person that was on the tip of her tongue. Sakura was beside herself as she gazed upon Naruto's new look with a slight blush.
He looks almost as handsome as Sasuke-kun, if not more. Arena.
Naruto stood in a crouch, right hand grasping the handle of the kunai and eyes on the front, facing the genin assembled.
He took in the expression of each of them.
Shikamaru's narrowed gaze, Shino's raised eyebrows, Kankuro's frown, Temari's appreciative but slightly guarded gaze, Niji's narrowed eyes but otherwise neutral expression.
But what put him on guard most was Gara.
Pulling out the lodged kunai with a slight jerk, he slowly stood up, maintaining eye contact with Gara. Gara's mouth almost twisted into a manic smile, but it was so quick that Naruto would have missed it if he were not looking for it. He stood up to his full height, towering full 4 inches above him. Without breaking eye contact, both of them seemed to size each other up. It was as if along with them, their bijou were also looking each other through their eyes.
A new feeling washed over the assembled group.
It was as if at first, there was an existing sensation of a contest between themselves.
Temari and Kankuro knew that Gara was the strongest among the 3 of them, and the genin from Konoha knew Niji was the strongest among them.
It was a clash between both the groups.
But with Naruto's arrival, it seemed that the purpose of the clash went utterly void, for here was a genin whose aura seemed to say that he already knew he was the strongest among them. The feeling was unsettling.
Uzumaki, Gara whispered, though it perfectly conveyed his bloodlust. Naruto did not change his expression, prompting Gara to continue, "Mother cries for your blood." Naruto merely lifted an eyebrow and said, "She's going to have to wait." He then proceeded to stand next to Shikamaru, who turned an annoyed expression to him, "You're a troublesome guy, have I ever told you that?"
Naruto smirked but said nothing.
Ganma gazed at Naruto for a moment more, before turning his gaze and calling out, "Just to be clear, I'll say it one more time.
The same rules apply as last time. Opponents continue the fight until one is either knocked out or unable to continue. I also reserve the right to stop the match when I see fit." With that said, the contestants of the first match will step forward. The others will proceed to the contestant stands to wait for their matches. Shikamaru patted Naruto on his shoulders and walked off to sit with the rest of the rookies.
When the field cleared, it was just Niji, Naruto and Ganma, who stood between the two fighters as the two sized each other up.
You should give up, Uzumaki.
Fate has already decreed me to be the winner today, Niji broke the silence, informing Naruto as if what he said was fact, nothing more. Naruto smirked both at the squeals from the female audience and what he was about to say at him and replied, "Your eyes are said to be great, yet they can't even see that fate is not the proctor of this match, Ganma-sen is."
Niji's eyes hardened. Everything in life is set by fate, as is your defeat. But I can see you do not understand fate. Slipping into his stance, he continued, "Allow me to explain by demonstrating it to you." Ganma knew an opportunity when he saw it, and he swung his hand down in a slicing motion. Hajime. Immediately jumping back, he made a half-ram seal. 8 clones popped into existence. Go, he commanded.
All of them moved in to engage.
Niji did not seem alarmed at all.
He calmly engaged the clones with controlled expertise, slowly but surely, dispatching them.
Naruto observed that Niji's eyes never once moved in their sockets, always gazing forward.
As the last of the clones was finished off, Niji was surprised a bit that another batch was already moving in to engage. But no matter, they would not win. Fate had decreed him to be the victor of this match.
Stands. What is he doing, using Kage Bunshin against Niji? Asuma wondered, confused by Naruto's tactics.
Alongside him, Kurenai and Guy also were wondering the same thing.
If he knows the Hiraishin, he could have ended the match easily, so why isn't he?
With Niji's Byakugan, any type of attack using clones wouldn't work because of his all-around vision, Guy put in his thoughts. Perhaps there is more to this match than just achieving victory that we are not seeing. A few seats away, the head and the heiress of the Hyuga clan watched the match with impassive expressions. Hayashi paid careful attention to the Uzumaki, who was intently studying Niji's fighting style. There was no doubt about it, Naruto was the son of his old friend, the Yandame. Had he not known that Naruto knew that jutsu that made Namake's Minato so known, he would have been in favor of Niji's victory. But now, he felt like Naruto was setting Niji up for something. Like a predator playing with its prey, before finishing it off. He would have told Hanabi about his assurance of Niji's victory, but that was before he realized just who Niji was facing. He wisely chose to keep quiet.
Arena.
There, Naruto mentally exclaimed as Niji finished off the 4th batch of shadow clones. He waited for Niji to get his breath back as he prepared himself, setting into his stance. He found out all he needed to fight this match on his terms. Niji finished off the last clone and faced the original, all the while mentally cursing. While it took much longer than he estimated, he was able to finish all of them off. But that wasn't what surprised him. The clones, along with the original, didn't seem to have any chakra network at all. The Hyuga clan's taijutsu was largely based on attacking the tenketsu in the chakra network, cutting off the flow of chakra where they struck. However, the revelation that Naruto did not have a chakra network almost made his taijutsu null and void. It was almost like he was fighting blind. Almost. Along with learning the locations of the tenketsu, the Hyuga also learned the locations of various pressure points. With the option of striking the tenketsu out, he only had pressure points to rely on. While not as many as the number of the tenketsu, there were enough for him to strike. He turned to the original, watching him settle into a strange stance. He settled into his, knowing that Uzumaki Naruto had given him yet another reason, along with being the son of the Yandame, to believe that he was a very dangerous opponent. "I presume you know that I am not a normal opponent by now," Naruto called out. Niji narrowed his eyes and deactivated them. "Indeed you are not. But that doesn't matter. Fate has spoken in my favor today, which is why you will lose." Naruto narrowed his eyes. "If you insist on believing so much in fate, then allow me to show just how fragile the concept of fate is." With that, he moved. Almost everyone, including most of the jonin in the stands, was perplexed as one moment Naruto was standing 10 feet away, and the next moment a foot was being barely blocked by the Hyuga. Many people thought that it was Hiraishin, however, when Niji was sent skidding back from the force of the kick, they realized that Naruto had moved so fast that the momentum had augmented the force behind the kick, causing Niji to go skidding backwards. But Naruto had only started. Niji had barely begun to think when Naruto attacked again. He was shocked at just how fast and ruthlessly he was forced onto the defensive. As he tried to block the attacks, Niji had thought that Naruto's fighting style was focused more on the strength of the attacks, rather than speed. He was promptly proved when he failed to hide his winces when he felt the force behind each of the attacks. He moved by instinct as he attempted to redirect the force behind Naruto's attacks. The speed behind his attacks was nothing to scoff at as well. While the strikes had impressive force behind them, they seemed to be augmented by the sheer speed that Naruto was using to strike. Son of the Yondaime indeed. Only years of training in the martial art of his family and developing his instincts allowed him to dodge his attacks. Even then, he was dodging and blocking by instinct only. That wasn't the only problem. His hands were feeling unusually hot. Niji's thought process resulted in a punch slipping past his guard, right into his left cheek, and he found himself flying backwards from the force of it. He prevented from landing on his back by twisting himself mid-air and landing on his feet. His hand came up to tenderly rub the surprisingly, slightly burned area as he narrowed his eyes, trying to figure out just how was Naruto defying fate. Kaga Box. Hiruzen was thoroughly impressed when he saw Naruto engaging Niji in taijutsu. Usually, it was considered suicidal to engage a Hyuga in taijutsu, but it seemed Naruto had no such qualms. Not just that, but his taijutsu was effective enough to put a Hyuga on the defensive. And it seemed he added his own touch to it, if the small burn on Niji's face was anything to go by. Most unpredictable ninja indeed. He pulled out a notepad, which he had brought to write points on which each genin qualified for the position. He wrote down something and kept it aside. Your genin is quite impressive and bold, Hokage Dano. He must be very confident to engage a shinobi of the Hyuga clan in taijutsu, Orochimaru commented, playing his role as the supposed Kazekage. Hiruzen chuckled, I'm sure that this is only the beginning, Kazekage Dano. He will surprise us, of that I have no doubt. Mentally though, you don't give me the credit I deserve, Orochimaru. Don't think I don't know that it's you in those robes. Stands. The surprise was evident on the faces of the three jonin. Not every day you see a prodigal Hyuga being bested by the supposed dead last, now revealed to be the son of their late Hokage, in taijutsu. Guy was crying, shouting something about Naruto's youth, with Lee vehemently agreeing with him. Kami, is this really what he is capable of? Ino whispered in amazement and slight fear. She was suddenly, infinitely grateful that Naruto hadn't gone full force in their spar that day. If he had, she would have really been dead. Naruto. Sakura whispered in awe as she watched her teammate best one of the Hyuga at their own game. It suddenly became clear just how utterly huge the gap between their skills was. She couldn't even begin to see his movements, that's how fast he was. The first attack alone would have taken her out of the fight. A few seats away, Hinata watched with a slight smile as Naruto held his own against her prodigal cousin. Naruto-kun. Kiba on the other hand, was shocked and almost jealous of the speed and skill Naruto was displaying. It made him think back to his own fight with the blonde, and he ruefully smiled at how easily he was beaten. He had grown up with Naruto, and if there was anything he could say for certain about the blonde, it was that Naruto never gave up. He could say without a doubt that Naruto had trained his ass off to reach where he is now. It sort of inspired him to become the same. After all, if Naruto could do it, why can't he? Arena. Niji hid his wince as he kept his gaze on Naruto, slowly standing up. He evaluated on whatever he had experienced so far. There is no doubt that he is physically strong, almost on the same level as Lee. I'm willing to bet that he could withstand the amount of force he dishes in his attacks himself as well. And he is fast, unbelievably so. Nothing else would be expected of the son of the fastest shinobi to ever live, after all. I never knew that it was possible to have such impossibly fast reflexes. His fighting style is lethal, but in a way I have never seen before. Every fighting style has a focal point which it is based on.
Gai-sensei's Goken is based on strength, Juken is based on precision. But his style seemingly incorporates strength, speed, flexibility, and precision. It's as if he can switch to any one of them if one proves to be inadequate against one opponent.
Not just that, his movements are bizarre. He seems to have mastered the way to perfectly switch from one set of movements to another, without hesitation. His hands also feel as if they are on fire, burning any area of contact. Fully standing up, he took deep breaths to center himself. I'll have to avoid his hands, no, pretty much his every blow.
Am I getting to you, with that fragility of your so-called fate? Naruto asked, and no one missed the sarcasm in his voice. Niji chose to ignore that, and instead asked, how did you manage to burn my face?
Naruto rose his eyebrow in a way that strongly reminded Niji of himself. He raised his eyebrows that way when his teammates seemed to suggest an utterly stupid idea. So that's how it feels to be on the receiving side of it. He felt quite stupid to be honest, and was a bit glad that he had a burn on his cheek, otherwise his blush would have been caught. What idiot reveals the secret of his or her technique, Baka? Naruto asked in a bored tone. Kaga box. Hiruzen heartily laughed at the question. It was highly amusing when in his youth, his opponents seemed to spare him the thought process of trying to figure out their technique by revealing it on their own. It allowed him to create a counter-strategy quite easily. Instead of finishing him off, they seemed to choose to gloat about their techniques.
What idiots! A very true question. Won't you agree, Kazekage Dano?
Orochimaru forced out a chuckle, while he couldn't shake off the feeling that the old monkey knew it was him and was openly mocking him.
I agree, Hokage Dano.
Hiruzen smirked and turned back to watch what was turning out to be a highly entertaining match. So far, Naruto had only shown his superior prowess in taijutsu, and had yet to show something that qualified him for Chunin, except for keeping emotions under control. He had to keep his smirk from widening, for he was reminded of a younger Orochimaru, bragging about the secret behind the techniques he developed himself.
What an idiot! Stands. Kiba shared the amusement with his Hokage, for he was laughing as well.
He never knew Naruto had it in him to mock others. Hinata was trying to hide her giggles behind her hand. It would not do if her father caught her laughing at Naruto calling her cousin an idiot.
Sakura and Ino shared no such restraints, and were full-out giggling.
The Jonin had mixed reactions. Asuma had snorted and had to catch his smoking stick from flying onto the head of the person in front of him. Kurenai was stifling her giggles like her student, not wanting to offend Guy for laughing at his student.
Guy had an entirely different response.
Instead of being offended on behalf of his student, tears came from his eyes and he clenched his fist.
What a hip response!
No doubt, you have passed your coolness onto your student, my eternal rival Kakashi. Needless to say, he entirely ignored insult on Niji, choosing to focus on how hip and cool Naruto's response was.
Arena.
Niji was barely keeping himself from turning red in embarrassment at all the giggles in the stadium that were aimed at him as a result of Naruto's comeback. Naruto was entirely amused by the giggles resounding in the stadium, but chose to keep it to himself. No need to embarrass him any further. Time to continue the fight, this time with a bit of misdirection. Niji was already worn out and trying to reduce the feeling of stupidity in himself, so when Naruto suddenly disappeared from in front of him, he was caught unawares. Naruto grinned as a solid kick connected to Niji's left shoulder, sending him flying away from him for the second time in the fight. He twisted and landed on feet, but was given no time to recover as he engaged the Uzumaki in taijutsu yet again. He activated his Byakugan this time, watching out for Naruto's no doubt, Katan chakra-enhanced hand strikes. But for some reason, Uzumaki's hands were lacking the chakra that was making them heated. So Niji jumped at the opportunity to block rather than dodge, all the while trying to find an opening. He also deactivated his eyes to conserve chakra. He would endure the punishing force for a short while. Maybe he should taunt him a bit.
You are not fighting with your chakra-coated strikes as you were doing before, Uzumaki.
He smirked as he saw Naruto narrowing his eyes. It seems this is where fate draws the line for you using that technique. He was shocked, however, when Naruto, instead of getting enraged like he wanted, snorted out loud.
In a surprising maneuver, Naruto locked himself with Niji, holding him in place.
As much as Niji tried, he would only move if he managed to overpower him.
Yeah, not happening. Niji grunted as he tried to get out of the lock Uzumaki had put him in.
But as much as he struggled, he could not move the limbs of the blonde. His face twisted in a snarl, and he locked eyes with Naruto, who had a neutral expression on his face. Whatever he was going to say was thrown out of the window at the blonde's words. Only a pansy like you would call misdirection as an act of fate. He saw it, but could do absolutely nothing to stop it.
Futon, Repushu. Wind style, Gale Palm.
A clone, who had appeared beside them without any hand seals which caused a gasp to resonate through the shinobi part of the crowd, had enough compressed air in his hands to cleanly blow Niji away almost 20 meters.
Naruto had released him from the lock at the very last second.
While the force was enough to send him flying, it lacked a damaging component.
But instead of feeling relief, Niji only felt dread.
He had a feeling that Uzumaki had planned something much worse for him. Unlike the previous times, Niji failed to add grace to his landing and as such, rolled toughly onto the ground. Remembering that Uzumaki would not likely give him time to recover, he quickly got up to his feet, just in time to see 4 shuriken converging on him with deadly accuracy. He jumped to the side to avoid them, but was surprised by the blonde, yet again. So he decided to switch to long-distance attacks.
This is good for me, for I might be able to use this window to recover a bit.
But that thought was thrown out of the window in the next moment.
Naruto had predicted in a split second where Niji would land, after he avoided those shuriken.
So, he had cleverly threw 3 kunai, wrapped with explosive tags of his own design, to that spot. Niji grit his teeth as the kunai came closer and closer.
It seems I'll have to use that. Naruto watched as the kunai almost hit Niji.
His eyebrows raised in surprise when Niji suddenly spun, so fast that he wasn't even visible anymore, and was covered in a dome of his own chakra.
Hakusho Kaiten.
Naruto activated his exploding tags just as they reached Niji, and watched with a mix of curiosity and fascination that the dome of chakra spinning around Niji completely protected him from the resulting explosion.
Stands. Hanabi turned to her father, Tusama, isn't that dash?
Yes, Hayashi replied instantly.
His own eyes were narrowed as he clenched his fists.
Kaiten is supposed to be the technique of the main house.
How does Niji, a member of the branch house, know it so well? Arena.
Niji stopped spinning, and couldn't really hide the smugness from his voice as he saw the expression on Naruto's face. He could gloat later, right now, he would capitalize on this small window of opportunity. No need to use the Byakugan, for he knew exactly where to strike. Naruto had immediately created 5 clones to scope out Niji's new technique and find a weakness, but his opponent's words momentarily gave him a pause. You are now in the field of my divination, Niji ominously announced. Not wanting to give Niji the chance of using this technique, 2 of them shot forward to engage him. But this time, Niji was ready, his hands moving in a blur.
2 palms, 2 clones gone. 4 palms. Another 2 gone. 8 palms. The last one tried to shield himself. Futile effort. Even if you have no tenketsu, the physical damage from the strikes alone will send you down. 16 palms.
Naruto grunted as the hands slammed into him with considerable speed.
32 palms. 64 palms.
Naruto skid back as Niji finished his technique, breathing evenly. Because he chose to keep his Byakugan deactivated for the majority of the fight, he had more than enough chakra to keep going on. It was easy to ignore the physical pain when you train with people such as Gai-sensei.
Naruto had blood dripping from his mouth.
He went down on one knee, drawing gasps from the crowd.
This was the first time he had taken any damage in this fight, and it was enough to send him on one knee. Looking at Niji, he asked in obvious pain, "I assume you were going for physical damage if you couldn't find my tenketsu, weren't you?"
Niji felt a sense of superiority as he looked down on Naruto. No one remained in fighting condition after getting hit by the 8 trigrams, 64 palm technique.
You assume correctly. While you were formidable for some time, this is where this ends, Uzumaki. I told you before, fate has decreed that I will win today. Kaga box. Orochimaru smiled under the veil, a most formidable technique of the Hyuga clan, Hokage Dano. I wonder if this is the end for the young Uzumaki.
Hiruzen smiled as he wrote something down on the notepad. Don't worry, Kazekage Dano. Naruto won't go down this easily.
Stands. The Jonin had confused looks on their faces. Why did Niji do that? Couldn't he see it?
Guy was rubbing his chin. I don't know what Niji was thinking when he did that, but it clearly didn't work the way he might have expected. While the news that Naruto didn't have a chakra network was quite staggering, they wanted to see how Niji would work his way around it. The genin, on the other hand, were different parts worried and resigned. Kiba, Hinata, Sakura, and Ino wore worried looks as they looked at Naruto.
Naruto-kun.
Hinata whispered in worry, knowing just how formidable the technique that Niji had used was.
Even if Niji didn't have tenketsu to strike, the muscles that were struck would suffer considerable damage.
What a technique, Ino whispered in awe as she looked at the kneeling form of Naruto. Naruto had completely dominated the fight from the beginning, but Niji had seemingly turned the tables with just one move.
Get up, Naruto! Sakura was chanting in her mind, restraining from saying it out loud.
Tenten, on the other hand, just shook her head as if she already knew this was going to happen. While you were good, Naruto, there is no way you can recover from this.
Arena.
Naruto, despite being in pain, chuckled.
Niji rose an eyebrow. What's so funny?
Naruto looked up with mirth swimming in his eyes. And I told you, fate is very fragile. And he burst into smoke. Cheers erupted from the crowd as it was revealed that the Uzumaki had pulled a fast one on everyone, including Niji. The said genin cursed as he activated his Byakugan and looked around. He almost gasped when he found out where Naruto was, but wasn't able to react in time. Naruto burst from the ground behind him, a predatory grin on his face and body already in motion. Niji was able to angle his body so that his left shoulder took the hit instead of his head. But he winced as the already abused shoulder took another hit, and he was sent toppling away. Naruto brushed off some of the dirt as Niji let out a small groan of pain and frustration, standing up.
Most people don't think to look down at the last second. Am I right? Niji said nothing as he gazed scornfully at the smirking blonde.
You made the mistake of deactivating your eyes. If you hadn't, you might have noticed that I substituted with my clone at the last second. Your mistake also allowed me to hide without worry under the ground.
Pretty good for misdirection and deception, don't you think?
Niji grit his teeth. Even if you had substituted with your clone, a shadow clone gets dispelled after one hit. Naruto made a sound of mock realization. That, I reinforced it with chakra.
It's really not that difficult.
He then smirked in a way that sent shivers down Niji's spine.
I've somewhat heard about your defensive technique. The ultimate defense of the Hyuga, isn't it?
Niji said nothing, which was more than enough for an answer. Holding up 4 shuriken, he challenged, let's test that so-called ultimate defense, shall we?
Kaga box. Your genin is very ingenious, Hokage Dano.
Hiruzen nodded, pride coursing through him at how well Naruto was handling himself. So far, Naruto had demonstrated skills that were already above the qualification level of Chunin. He wondered just how Naruto planned to break the ultimate defense of the Hyuga clan.
Stands.
Kiba, Ino and Sakura had shouted in glee when Naruto had popped, the real Naruto kicking Niji away. Hinata had quietly cheered for Naruto, while Tenten was in a state of disbelief. While even Lee couldn't get up after Niji's technique, it was a whole another thing to avoid it successfully altogether.
Arena.
The shuriken whizzed towards Niji, who jumped to the side to avoid them, opting to conserve chakra. He was stupefied, however, when he spotted a giant ball of fire making its way towards him, fast. Having no time to jump again, he was forced to resort to his defense.
Kaiten.
Niji reached his maximum rotation speed just as the fireball reached him. The fireball crashed into the spinning dome of chakra, taking only 5 seconds to disperse, which was 4 seconds too late for Niji. It was hard to accurately keep track of your surroundings when you were spinning at a really high speed.
So one moment Niji was inside the dome, the other moment Naruto was inside with him. Wait, what?
This time, Niji didn't even have time to be fully surprised as he was punched in the face, hard.
The sudden application of an external force disrupted the Kaiten, and Niji was bodily thrown through the fireball.
I'm really getting tired of being thrown like that, Niji lamented as he stood up once again, a bit burnt from going through the fireball.
Stands. Asuma and Kurenai were gawking at the way Naruto broke the defensive technique.
One moment he was standing outside the dome, the other moment they all saw him disappearing and appearing instantly inside the dome in a blue flash.
Hirashin, Guy whispered in awe.
Even he had not found a way yet to break that defensive technique. But if the Hirashin could surpass defenses with such amount of ease, it really was a terrifying technique. No wonder the Yandane was so feared.
Kaga box.
I really have no more words to describe how impressive that genin of yours is, Hokage Dano.
To learn and master the Yandane's most feared technique at such a young age is no small feat, Kazekage complimented. Hiruzen smirked and nodded. That was a masterful use of the Hirashin. Naruto must have marked Niji at the very first opportunity.
Also, to be capable of using two elemental natures is very impressive, Orochimaru complimented.
Hiruzen accepted the compliment on behalf of Naruto with a nod and a smirk. Arena.
Niji breathed heavily as he gazed at Naruto. He was down to just a quarter of his chakra reserves, while Naruto had yet to show any signs of fatigue. What he didn't know that Naruto's chakra reserves were so much larger that he had only used a small drop of the entirety yet.
How did you? How did I break your defense?
Naruto helpfully finished it for him.
When he saw him nod, he sighed.
While I did say before that only idiots reveal their technique, it's no big secret as to the way I appeared inside with you. Reaching behind him, he pulled out his Hirashin kunai, dangling it in his index finger.
I'm sure you know what this is.
He looked around, discreetly seeing that he had captured the attention of the entire audience. This is a kunai that was once used by my father, Namake's Minato. Mutters rose in the crowd in response to the confirmation of their thoughts from before, but quickly silenced when Naruto continued. The Hirashin no Jutsu is a space-time technique, a combination of ninjutsu and fuinjutsu. Basically, this formula here, he showed him his imprinted formula, acts as a beacon for me. Wherever this formula is, I can teleport there without any problem. That means, the reason I was able to get in there is because you already have a mark on you. Niji had never widened his eyes this much in his entire life. He desperately searched for the place where Naruto had placed his formula, and found it beneath his forearm. Never before had he been so outclassed in a fight. How had he failed to notice such a simple thing? Naruto spun the kunai, catching it in a reverse hold. The look on his face was almost as if set in stone. It was the same look the yellow flash gave to his enemies before killing them. I could have ended the fight the moment we engaged in taijutsu. In another scenario, if you would have been my enemy and not a comrade, you were dead the moment I put this mark on you.
Silence rang in the entire statement as the cold truth of the words hit each person.
It was only now that they realized just how truly dangerous and lethal the Yandame's use of this jutsu was.
It was basically as if you were marked by death.
If you had this mark, there was no escape for you.
Then why didn't you? Naruto raised an eyebrow and put the kunai back in his pouch. Tell me something, Niji. Why do you believe in fate so much? What gives you the excuse to claim that everything is fated to be?
Niji looked surprised for a moment, but then his eyes hardened. He reached for his headband and removed it. Because of this, he said, pointing to a green seal on his forehead. It was a cross in the middle, with hooks on either side of the cross. The birdcage seal is given to the branch house members of the Hyuga clan by the main house members. While it may seem that both the houses are family, it is a lie. The cold reality is that the branch house members only act as servants to the main house, he explained. Naruto didn't attack him when Niji closed his eyes, instead opting to hear his story out. The seal is given to the branch house members to protect our prized bloodline from falling into our enemies' hands. After the death of a house member, the seal activates and seals the abilities of Byakugan. By that, I mean this seal binds us until death. A destiny from which we cannot escape. Niji told him about the Hyuga incident which happened 8 years ago. How Hinata was almost kidnapped by the ambassador from Kumogakure no Sato. How the village had demanded the death of Hayashi Hyuga as compensation, how his father was offered instead. Till the end of the explanation, Naruto did not allow one speck of emotion to show on his face. When Niji was finished, then Naruto spoke. You speak that it is fate that the branch family will always remain bound, yet you contradicted your own belief when you tried to kill Hinata in the prelims. You tried to divert from your predestined path. All of this, because you hold a grudge against the main family? Niji finally lost control of himself. My father was taken away from me because Hayashi-sama couldn't take the responsibility for his actions. My father had to give his own life, just so Hayashi-sama could keep on living. Naruto said nothing for a while. Niji thought he had got through the blonde, but was shell-shocked when he heard Naruto's next words. I already planned on winning today, but I'll say it just for you. I won't be losing to a coward who's always blaming all of his problems on some nonsense such as fate. Someone as ignorant as you is in no position to lecture me, Niji shot back. You can never understand what it's like to be burdened with a symbol you can never be rid of. There was a pin-drop silence in the whole stadium. The whole audience felt the impact of the words. Niji couldn't have been more wrong. The senior shinobi feared Naruto would lose it, even the Hokage. But thankfully, Naruto kept a tight lid on his emotions. It wouldn't do losing it in the center of a crowd. Naruto sighed wistfully, whispering, "You're wrong. I know exactly how it feels, but enough talk." He finished in a strong voice. He made a ram seal, and Niji felt that it was better to be cautious rather than just wait and see what happens. Immediately, he jumped back, or tried to anyway. It wasn't as if he was paralyzed, but it felt like his body was stuck in mud. Just as you have to struggle to move your limbs when drowned in water or mud, Niji had to struggle to just move his arms. It was as if he was stuck in clay. What the hell is this? Naruto was calmly walking forward, now that he had successfully activated his seal. Resistance seals. While normally used for training, it's somewhat unusual to apply it in combat. You are currently experiencing a level 3 resistance. Fuinjutsu is perhaps the most versatile of the shinobi arts, won't you agree? Kaga box. Your genin is just full of surprises, Hokage Dano. To make use of seals so efficiently in combat, with just his chakra, it's almost as if he is already an expert. Not many choose to study that particular art. Hiruzen chuckled and replied, Naruto is more than just skilled in Fuinjutsu. He is perhaps the most skilled person I have ever seen. Not surprising, if you consider just who his father was. The other Kage nodded in approval. He definitely qualifies for Chunin. To think he had managed to put a Hiraishin and a resistance seal on his opponent. He had been several steps ahead of his opponent right from the beginning of the match. Hiruzen absently nodded, choosing to focus on the match. Taijutsu, Ninjutsu, Fuinjutsu. Stands. I didn't know Naruto knew Fuinjutsu like that. Ino exclaimed. Sakura smiled, proud of having a teammate like Naruto. Naruto is an expert in them, you know. Kiba hollered, YOSH. Go, Naruto.
Tenten was dumbstruck just how many steps Naruto had been ahead of her teammate.
The Jonin were beside themselves. Asuma was rubbing his head. He really is quite well versed in sealing for his age.
Not many people can apply seals with their chakra just like that.
Kurenai nodded, and both of them tried to block out Guy's shouting of how youthfully Naruto was displaying his skills.
Arena.
Niji stood rooted to his place, and to his horror, Naruto came running towards him, with him being unable to do anything about it. He received a painful punch on his right cheek, and the force behind it was enough to send him stumbling to his left.
It hurt, considering he was experiencing resistance in his movements.
Naruto was suddenly in front of him, punching at the same spot again.
Only this time, it hurt a lot more than before.
The result was the same. Niji went stumbling to his left. Finishing it off, Naruto 540 kicked the side of his head with such force that Niji could have sworn he saw stars in front of his eyes. He was sent onto the ground, and this time, there was no getting back up. You might think that it was because of the resistance seal, but no. He had taken way too many hits, and his body had finally given up. Niji could do nothing but glare at Naruto as he crouched in front of him. "I told you," Naruto stated softly.
"Fate is a fragile concept.
Our destiny is never set in stone, Niji.
I am not strong because I was fated to be.
I chose to work hard to reach where I am now."
Hinata calls you Niji Nii-san, doesn't she?
You really should stop treating her like the way you do. She only wants to unite the branch family with the main family. She looks up to you as her big brother. It is only fitting you treat her like your sister. It's time you stepped up and stopped using fate as an excuse.
He then removed the resistance seal from Niji.
He stood up and started walking away, letting the medics carry the injured Hyuga away.
He smiled as he heard a soft, "Maybe you're right."
Perhaps there was some hope, after all.
Ganma declared loudly, "The winner is Uzumaki Naruto."
The entire stadium burst into a tremendous applause. Everyone was clapping as hard as they could, even going so far as to stand and start chanting, "Namikaze!
Namikaze! Namikaze!" The chant resonated around in the entire stadium, and within seconds, the entire stadium was chanting it as well.
Naruto, for his part, smiled softly. The sight of everyone cheering for him, even if it was a name that he really didn't use, brought a lump to his throat.
He was finally acknowledged by everyone.
Bowing to the crowd, he turned away and headed to the genin stands. He received many good-natured pats on the back, and shook almost everyone's hands on the way. The words "great job" and "congratulations" rang frequently in his ears.
He just accepted them all with a smile and continued on his way.
When he reached the stands, he took in the reactions. First there was Temari. She was gazing at him with a small smile, and nodded at him, mouthing "good match." Despite what had occurred between them 2 nights ago, they could respect each other as competitors.
He nodded back in acknowledgement.
As he walked by her, her brother was next.
He just scoffed and turned away, but Naruto could spot small beads of sweat.
Smirking, he continued.
Gara was staring at him, arms crossed.
His expression gave nothing away, but his body twitched every now and then. Naruto spotted the cork on his gourd shaking, as if the sand was struggling to come out of it.
He didn't wait to see if it would actually come out. Shino gave him a nod of respect, acknowledging his strength. "Good job, Naruto." Naruto nodded back, "Thanks." Naruto didn't need to guess the response of Shikamaru.
Troublesome, the shadow user sighed, further slouching, if possible.
"You just had to go and cause a ruckus, didn't you?" Naruto snorted. It was true, the crowd was still chanting his name.
He shrugged in mock modesty, "What can I say, I'm just that charismatic and awesome."
"Would Uchiha Sasuke and Sabaka no Gara please come down?" Kaga box.
A splendid display of skills, I say.
Don't you agree, Kazekage Dano? Indeed, Hokage Dano.
I really didn't expect this match to be this entertaining. Hiruzen smiled as he gazed at the blonde genin, soon to be Chunin.
Well done, Naruto. You performed better than expected. Though you could have ended the match far more quickly, you chose to amend Niji's ways by proving him wrong.
You just might have gained a friend and a trusted comrade in him.
He then frowned. It seems Naruto's teammate, Sasuke-kun, still hasn't arrived.
And I can't spot Kakashi among the Jonin as well, he thought, looking at where the Jonin senseis were standing.
He shook his head slightly in disappointment. Kakashi, your habits just cost your genin his chance at promotion. He motioned the Jonin that was standing as his guard, informed the proctor that Uchiha Sasuke is disqualified due to his lateness.
Orochimaru frowned beneath the veil. He didn't want the Uchiha to be disqualified as he wanted to see how much Sasuke had improved.
Hokage Dano, can we not give him 5 more minutes to arrive?
I am eager to see my son test his skills against the last Uchiha. Hiruzen kept his face carefully neutral.
He knew exactly why the Kazekage wanted to see the last Uchiha in action. Apologies Kazekage Dano, but I cannot allow any favoritism towards my shinobi, last Uchiha or not. Following the orders of a superior is an important part of being a Chunin. By not showing up on time, Uchiha Sasuke is showing insubordination.
I cannot, in good conscience, allow such a genin such as that to progress to Chunin.
He may try again in the next exams after 6 months. Orochimaru frowned. That won't do. Then perhaps a compromise is in order? It would be rather disappointing if he did not fight today, as many of the visiting nobility came here specifically to see the Uchiha fight.
How about disqualifying him and denying him the chance of promotion, but allow him to fight in an exhibition match at the end of the tournament against the winner? That would allow the crowd to see the Uchiha fight, but still punish him for insubordination.
Hiruzen thought it over a bit. If he disqualified Sasuke, Gara would be declared the winner.
According to the matchups, Gara would then fight the winner of the first match, which was Naruto. While he was a bit worried about letting Naruto fight such a dangerous opponent, he had confidence that Naruto would be safe.
Nodding, he said, that is an acceptable arrangement, Kazekage Dano. Stands.
Ino was gaping at the piece of news that was revealed to the whole of Konoha and people from beyond. To think that Naruto, the dead last of their batch and the foremost prankster of Konoha, would turn out to be the son of the man Konoha almost worshipped.
I never knew, she whispered.
She could not believe she missed such a big fact. She was supposed to be from a clan that were masters of the mind, yet she couldn't not see such obvious resemblance. She ought to be ashamed of herself.
If not for the age, Naruto and Namake's Minato could be clones of each other.
Blonde hair of almost identical shade, azure eyes that were unique to them, it could not be more obvious than that. Sakura's jaw was almost unhinged.
She couldn't believe she never saw the resemblance as well. It was so obvious.
And come to think of it, she treated him like crap. The son of the hero who saved Konoha from the Kyuubi, treated like crap. Not just by her, but by the whole village, including her mother. She wanted to crawl into a hole and just hide.
Kiba couldn't believe it.
Well, he could, but had a hard time comprehending it. The person who he thought could never become a competent shinobi in the first place had just beat the known prodigy of the Hyuga, a person who was favored the most to win the Chunin exams. And apparently, he had done without breaking a sweat. He ruefully chuckled, I couldn't have been more wrong about him.
Akamaru whined in agreement.
Tenten was shaking her head in disbelief. She couldn't believe Naruto had beaten her teammate, who she believed to be the strongest genin in Konoha. But then again, he had the Yandame's jutsu on his side.
Arena. Ganma frowned but nodded at the message sent from the Hokage.
Turning to the crowd, he announced the Kage's decision. Due to not showing up in time for his match, Uchiha Sasuke has been disqualified from the final stage of these exams. He continued despite the booing from the crowd. However, the Hokage has allowed an exhibition match between the winner of the tournament and Uchiha Sasuke in order to satisfy the visiting nobility.
But he won't be given the chance to get promoted to Chunin. Therefore, winner by disqualification, Sabaku no Gara. Stands.
The audience, even though they were witness to a match such as that of the Hyuga and the Uzumaki, now revealed to be the sole Namikaze, were distraught to hear that the Hokage had chosen to disqualify the last Uchiha. Many were waiting solely to watch that match, so the reason for their displeasure was quite obvious. Their spirits were lifted up a bit though, when they heard that the Uchiha would be fighting in an exhibition match with the winner of this tournament. Everyone began muttering amongst themselves excitedly. Just maybe, they might get to see a match between Uchiha Sasuke and Uzumaki Naruto.
The last Uchiha versus the last Namikaze.
Up in the area for the competing genin, Naruto was frowning at the latest announcement.
A bit of a partial treatment, don't you think? He addressed Shikamaru. Shikamaru frowned as well, yeah.
He is getting a chance to fight, whereas any other genin wouldn't have been considered in the first place. Naruto nodded in agreement and added to the point, not only that, but he will be in peak condition to fight, while we would be worn out from fighting all the opponents.
It's more than a bit unfair.
Then he added mentally, though that match won't be happening anyways. The invasion would maybe begin as soon as the quarter-finals end. Thank you Kurama, for expanding my chakra reserves and making sure I am in top form today. He received a snort in response, I cared not much for your words.
Thank me by making sure you defeat that accursed Tanuki.
He is trespassing on my area.
Naruto smirked at the command. He planned to do it anyway. Down on the arena, Gara turned and started walking back to the waiting area.
His sand was twitching angrily as his next victim wasn't there. His blood had been pumping to fight the Uchiha, who he saw as a strong opponent.
To find out he wasn't here.
The only reason he hadn't started killing everyone with his sand was that his next match was with the Uzumaki. Uzumaki Naruto was someone worthy, someone who would prove his existence.
Ganma announced, the next match will be between Aburain Shino and Sabaku no Kankuro. Before he could say anything more, he was interrupted.
Proctor, I forfeit. Kankuro's yell was followed by a confused look from Ganma and a roar of disapproval from the crowd. Naruto narrowed his eyes at Kankuro and Temari. While Kankuro did not glance at him, Temari cast a nervous and tense look at him.
Naruto just turned back to the arena.
He did not expect Sasuke of all people to be late to such an event.
Maybe Kakashi was counting on to make a dramatic entrance for the last loyal Uchiha? Either way, he was disqualified, which meant one thing.
His next match was with Gara.
Which was a good thing. He could neutralize Gara before the invasion even began.
Of course, that was not taking account of people who could likely interfere in the fight.
In order for the invasion to succeed, it was critical that Gara unleashed the full form of his tailed beast.
He intended to suck Gara dry of all his chakra and as soon as he was weakened, slap the 5 elements seal onto him. He just prayed he would be fast enough.
Back in the arena, Ganma was announcing. Then by default, the winner of the match is Aburain Shino. Thus, we can progress on to the next match. The next match is Nara Shikamaru vs Sabaku no Temari. Naruto glanced towards his right. He smiled when a determined look came over Temari.
She pulled out her fan from her sash and swiped. Naruto whistled, impressed that such a large amount of wind was generated from just one swipe. He watched as Temari jumped onto her fan and gracefully glided towards where Ganma was standing. She set her fan down with one hand, the other hand resting on her hip and smirking, fully confident of her victory. Damn, that confidence makes her look so much sexier, Naruto thought with a slight nosebleed as he imagined some very naughty thoughts, ignoring the sniggering bastard within him. He wiped the blood off with his sleeve and glanced towards his left.
Shikamaru had a panicked look on his face.
Oi, why is it always my match that gets jumped up? He began to back away from the railing.
I'm forfeiting as well.
I don't care what my troublesome Kasen says or does to me, I am not Dash. His rant was cut off when a hand was placed on his shoulder.
He turned to face Naruto with a quizzical look.
What are you, Dash? It's okay Shika, Naruto said, complete with the sympathetic look. Shikamaru gave him a suspicious look, so Naruto did his best not to smile.
But there's just one problem. If possible, Shikamaru narrowed his eyes even further. What? You can't forfeit. The next moment, he was standing right in front of a smirking Proctor and Temari. He blinked once, trying to figure what the hell just happened and how did he get down here. He turned around and saw the complete look of innocence on Naruto's face. He gave a look of bloody murder at the blonde he called his friend. He had the nerve to use the Flying Thunder God to send him to the arena. He turned around, grumbling that at least he didn't have to walk the distance from the waiting area to the center arena. Naruto smirked when Shikamaru gave a burning glare at him. He wouldn't have been able to send Shikamaru to the arena if a marker wasn't already present. As it happened to be, there indeed was a marker on Temari's skin right below her left butt cheek. He put it on her while they were kissing in the alley, and he was holding her up by her butt. Her dress had rose up a bit, exposing more skin than what was appropriate for people of their age. A drop of blood trickled from his nose, happy times. He was brought back from a trip down the gutter by the proctor's call of beginning the match. He smirked when he saw Temari outright assaulting him, but had enough sense not to pursue him in the trees. He smirked as he saw the match progress, with Shikamaru passing time so as to lengthen the limit of his shadow. While Temari was certainly clever enough to engage from long distance, she failed to see that Shikamaru was obviously leading her into a specific position. Sorry Temari, but you weren't in the winning position in the first place. You aren't ready to beat an opponent of Shikamaru's caliber, yet. Naruto's guess about what Shikamaru was trying to do was proved right. While in the beginning of the match, it may have seemed that Shikamaru was randomly throwing kunai at her and missing. But Naruto knew that Shika didn't do anything without a purpose. When people are shown various, random pieces, they are confused and fail to see the bigger picture they make. The match dragged on for almost an hour, but at the end of the hour, Temari was caught in the grasp of Shikamaru's shadow. While it had seemed the kunai were just thrown around randomly, each of them had acted as a sort of platform for the shadow to jump from. Temari was too late to spot it, and finally got caught. On the arena, Temari was frozen. She couldn't believe that she was caught like this. Damn it! I was too late to see it. I should have finished him early with a large-scale jutsu. Instead, I got caught playing his game. Stands. All the high-ranking shinobi were amazed and impressed. The level of planning, the number of steps he had thought ahead, this was another shining example of Chunin material. The exams this year were showcasing some real talent. Shikamaru played to his strengths, using his extreme talent for strategies to set a trap for his opponent. A trap that was clever enough not to be noticed by his opponent until it was too late. While he had not dispatched his opponent like Naruto, the skill shown was enough to tell that the lazy Nara was worthy of promotion. Naruto had owned his fight from the start. Even though everyone was smart enough not to engage a Hyuga in taijutsu, Naruto knew he was better than Niji. Even when he was confronted with Niji's defensive technique, he proved his smarts as he found a way around it. Overall, both the matches had shown that the genin from Konoha this year were worthy of being promoted. Arena. Temari felt the unnerving feeling of not being in control of her own body as it stiffly shuffled forward. It was very awkward to walk with movements not your own. As the gap closed down between them to a mere 5 feet, they locked gazes. Shikamaru's gaze was level, his eyes giving nothing away. Temari's gaze was full of defiance and fierce anger. She was glaring at him with her jade eyes so hard that Shikamaru briefly wondered if he would catch on fire. H raised his hand in the air, his shadow bind on Temari ensuring that she did the same. She quivered, trying as hard as she could to fight it. She refused to admit defeat to this lazy excuse of a shinobi. I give up. I don't have any chakra left. His lazy voice carried over clearly, and whatever the audience was going to say died in their throat. What? Was the general reaction all around. Stands. Asuma was shaking his head. That kid has never been motivated for anything ever since I met him.
The audience slowly started clapping throughout the stadium. People could appreciate a good battle of minds, even if it wasn't as flashy or as big as they wanted it to be.
Arena. Ganma just snorted and announced, winner, Sabaku no Temari.
Shikamaru released his hold on Temari, who only just managed to catch herself. She stared at the retreating back of the genin, and managed to stutter out.
WI.
Shikamaru turned around and answered, shrugging in a way that really made him look like a guy who doesn't want to be bothered for anything.
It makes no sense to succumb to chakra exhaustion just for this when I might need my energy later.
He turned to go to the audience stands. As he had lost, he won't be fighting any future matches, so there was no reason for him to go back to the waiting area. As he approached the place where he had spotted Shuji before his fight, he was slightly surprised to see almost all the rookies and Jonin senseis present, talking to Naruto.
The blonde was chuckling at one of Lee's no doubt, highly youthful statements.
Everyone was trying to talk to him, and Naruto was answering all their questions with a patient smile.
The guy had become an instant celebrity.
He spotted Shikamaru walking up and turned away from the group, choosing to grin in the shadow user's face. Shikamaru gave him a look that froze his two teammates in place, while Sakura just gave a confused look to Naruto.
Asuma and Kurenai were smirking, while Lee and Guy looked as if they would burst with their youthfulness any moment.
Naruto waved a hand in his direction, grin not falling from his face for even a moment. Go on, you look like you want to say something. Shikamaru didn't bother wasting more energy to reply and merely sighed exhaustedly, dropping his glare.
He dropped down between Ino and Shuji.
Ino's attention immediately switched from Naruto to him, causing him to mutter something about tiresome blondes. Shuji, the sweet guy that he was, merely offered a potato chip with a smile. Shikamaru smiled back at his longtime friend and took a few, the crunching sound they made almost soothing to him.
Arena.
Ganma looked over to the Hokage, giving a questioning look. The Hokage shook his head and waved him to continue with the matches. Ganma nodded and turned to the audience. The quarter-final matches are over.
We will now proceed to the semifinals. First semifinal match will be Sabaku no Gara vs Uzumaki Naruto. Audience. The crowd roared in approval of the match, as they wanted to see, once again, the only son of the Yondaime in action. They were not going to see the Uchiha in action until the very end of the final match, but they weren't complaining about seeing Naruto in action in Sasuke's place. Over to where the rookies and their senseis were standing, the atmosphere was completely different in comparison to the rest of the crowd. It was as if someone had flipped a switch. 1 second, everyone was talking and joking around, the other second, everyone had grim faces. Only Naruto had a completely serious face that was not filled with any fear. No one had forgotten what Gara had done to lead back in the prelims. Would the contestants please come down? Gara appeared in a whirl of sand next to Ganma.
Naruto took a deep breath and straightened up. He was about to walk down to the arena when he felt a hand rest on his shoulder. Turning around, he saw that it was Asuma's. Naruto, wow, he was serious, be careful down there.
Kurenai and Guy also nodded seriously around him. Try to finish it as quickly as you can.
Naruto smirked, I could finish it in a flash, but I've got a different strategy in mind. With that, he walked off, the rest of the rookies mumbling their good luck wishes. He snorted when Shikamaru mumbled a "you better not die."
Ino swatted his head for that. Arena. Naruto kept his eye on Gara the entire time he walked to the center of the arena.
Gara had dropped all pretense of being calm and controlled. A grin not unlike that of a psychopathic killer graced his face as Naruto came to stand in front of him. The tension was so thick that it was almost suffocating. Gara was releasing ungodly amounts of killer amount, his cork already twitching madly, as if the sand had a mind of its own instead of being in Gara's control. Naruto, instead of releasing killing intent of his own, slowly started saturating the air with a moderate amount of chakra.
His chakra was very dense, in addition to being almost soothing and had a positive feeling to it, unlike Gara's.
It somewhat eased the tension in the air.
Ganma nervously watched both of them. Kaga box. Orochimaru smirked behind his veil.
While he wished to see how Sasuke would do against Gara, this was a fine arrangement as well. A match between two Jinchuriki would no doubt prove very informative.
This should be a very entertaining match, Kazekage Dano.
Your son versus the Yondaime Hokage's son, Hiruzen commented with a chuckle, hiding his nervousness about Naruto's safety. But you must understand my concern, given what happened to one of my genin in the prelims.
The other Kage waved a hand. Worry not, Hokage Dano.
Your genin has proved himself to be most ingenious and resourceful. However, if worst does come to pass, I'll stop Gara myself.
Hiruzen had to commend Orochimaru on his acting skills.
Had he not known it was his former student under those robes, he would have believed that statement wholeheartedly. He turned his attention back to the match.
Naruto was up against a Jinchuriki who had full control of his bijou.
He was fully confident in Naruto's skills, but he couldn't wave the worry away. Something on the arena caught both the Kage's attention.
Arena.
Just as Ganma was about to give the signal to begin, a sudden whirl of wind and leaves interrupted them and received a frown from Naruto and Gara. As the whirlwind settled down, Naruto had to stop himself from looking thoroughly annoyed. Two figures were standing back to back. Naruto mentally sighed, he really did want to make a dramatic entrance, after all. Kakashi and Sasuke were standing right in between Gara and Naruto. Kakashi looked the same as always, while Sasuke had dramatically changed his attire, opting for a darker theme. He wore a black, one-piece version of his usual attire, with bandages wrapped around his left arm.
Sasuke smirked as he came face to face with Gara.
He had trained heavily for the last month, even mastering a lethal jutsu. A jutsu that would secure him his victory.
Sorry I'm a bit late for our match. But we can begin now.
Gara had made it very clear back in the prelims that he was very excited to face Sasuke in the finals and couldn't wait for the match. So it came as a shock to Sasuke when Gara coldly replied, "Move aside, you are in my way." No reply came to his mouth, only snapping out of the shock when he heard Kakashi's voice.
Is that you, Naruto?"
Kakashi blinked as he came face to face with a face that looked painfully similar to his late sensei. The dots took a moment to connect, and once they did, his eye went wide.
Is that you, Naruto?"
Naruto was already annoyed for the interruption, so his patience was thinner than usual.
He snapped back, "Yes, it's me. Now would you mind taking Sasuke to the stands with you? You are interfering with my match." Kakashi blinked and turned to Ganma. "We are not late, are we?" Ganma gave him his best deadpan look. "You are a bit too late, actually.
Uchiha Sasuke has been disqualified due to being late for his fight and won't be fighting in any of the matches for a chance at promotion.
He will only fight in an exhibition match at the very end of the tournament."
Anger filled Sasuke's features and he snarled in a whisper, "You can't do that."
Ganma was unimpressed with the glare.
"Tell that to the Hokage. It was his decision in the first place.
Now get out of my arena," he motioned to them.
Sasuke turned his snarl onto Naruto. "Move, Naruto. This is my fight." Naruto fired back in a calm manner. "Your match was in the quarter-finals, Sasuke. This is the semi-finals. Get off the field." Sasuke almost made to punch Naruto when Kakashi grabbed his shoulder tightly.
"Calm down, Sasuke."
Turning to Naruto, he gave an eye smile. The whole month he had felt tremendously guilty for not training Naruto.
Seeing this as the semifinals, it was easy to conclude that Naruto had won his first match against Niji.
"Congratulations on winning your first fight, Naruto. All the best for this one." With that, he shunshined to the stands with all the rookies and Jonin senseis.
Ganma turned to Naruto and Gara. "Are you two ready?" Naruto nodded, while Gara made his impatience known.
"Just started already. Mother is hungry for his blood."
Ganma nodded and chopped the air in front of him.
"Hajime."
Naruto immediately jumped back.
Gara whispered with a crazy expression, "Make me feel alive, Uzumaki." The cork on his gourd flew off with the pressure his sand was putting on it. An enormous amount of sand, almost half of it, Naruto estimated, flew out and rushed towards him.
Naruto immediately stepped to 20 meters behind Gara to avoid it. It's not enough.
I'll have to goad him until he unleashes every grain of his goddamn sand. He pulled out 4 of his Hiraishin kunai, and stepped back to his previous position to avoid the stab of sand.
The only thing he left behind was the kunai, lodged in the ground. He repeated the process until the 4 kunai were scattered in a trapezius position around Gara. You won't get me like that. Come on, show me what you got.
He then flashed to a kunai to escape Gara's sand. It was a waiting game for him now.
Kaga box.
He is not so forward in this fight as he was in his previous one, Hokage Dano.
Hiruzen nodded his head. He might be scouting for Gara's weakness to form a viable plan. We'll just have to wait and see. Orochimaru chuckled. Gara's defense is absolute, Hokage Dano.
He would run out of chakra faster than he would find a weakness.
Hiruzen smirked. We both know what happened to the so-called ultimate defense of the Hyuga, Kazekage Dano. He refrained from chuckling at the silence that followed. Stands.
The whole audience was leaning forward in their seats, eager to see the famous Hiraishin no Jutsu in action. The rookies were all wondering what the blonde was up to.
Ino asked, confused, why is he scattering those kunai?
It's not like he's using them to attack Gara or something.
Shikamaru was frowning as well, trying to discern Naruto's strategy. Just what was he up to?
If anyone looked at Sasuke, they would think that he was about to burst a blood vessel on his forehead. His jaw was clenched and eyes filled with jealousy and scorn as he looked at Naruto easily dodging Gara's attempts, Sharingan fully activated.
What is that jutsu? Is that the reason he is so fast? My eyes can't even begin to trace his movements. He looks as if he isn't even beginning to get tired.
I should be the one who knows that jutsu, so I can use it to kill him.
What does he need it for? Just how far ahead of me are you, Naruto? Sasuke was pissed as whatever jutsu Naruto was using to dodge Gara's sand, he wasn't using any hand signs, so Sasuke had no chance of copying it.
Kakashi had pulled his headband up as soon as the match had begun. While he should be saving it for the invasion, he wanted to see Naruto use his sensei's legacy in action. He watched as Naruto put the kunai around Gara, doing nothing but teleporting from one to another. His eyes narrowed as pieces of a similar tactic came to his mind, but could not piece it together.
By his side, Asuma spoke up in a grave tone, Gara will get mad if Naruto keeps doing this. Getting that kid mad is the last thing he needs to do.
Kakashi absently spoke up, eyes keenly observing the match. On second thought, that might be exactly what he might be trying to do. The 3 other Jonin whipped to stare at him with wide, disbelieving eyes. The genin, who had heard the conversation as well, turned to stare at him with wide eyes as well. But unlike the Jonin, there was a bit of fear and horror in their eyes.
Is he mad or what? Ino almost shrieked.
But Kakashi was not worried at all. From what he had seen of Naruto up until now, Naruto resembled his father more than his mother. And if Naruto was even half like his father was, he had no reason to worry.
Arena. He could see it, Gara was beginning to show signs of irritation at his repeated escape attempts.
He had started to flash step around as well, not wanting to give Gara a pattern to follow his kunai. If he thought Naruto was only using the kunai to escape his grasp, he just might uproot and throw them away.
Gara was gritting his teeth as Uzumaki yet again escaped his grasp.
More sand flew from his gourd as he tried to cover a larger area with it, cutting Naruto's chances of escape.
Why are you escaping, Uzumaki? Face me. Now's my chance. Flash stepping to a more cleared part of the arena, he called out. Gara.
Gara narrowed his eyes, his sand momentarily pausing in its pursuit of Naruto.
What is it, Uzumaki? Are you afraid to face me? Is that why you are running away? To his surprise, Naruto snorted out loud. You think those pathetic attacks can get to me? Your sand has yet to even come close to touching me. Come on, Gara, unleash every drop of your sand. His words had the intended effect on Gara.
More sand flew out of his gourd, and he uncrossed his arms. His face split into a truly frightening grin.
Naruto internally smirked. Just one more push should do it. Naruto spread his arms out. In your own words, make me feel alive. The last part was whispered with a challenging grin. That finally did it for Gara. An opponent who was asking the same thing he asked from him. This was almost like a rare treat for him. No one asked him to make them feel alive, as he was usually the one to do it. With deadly intent, he whispered, "Fine, Uzumaki."
He commanded all of his sand to come out of the gourd, which was truly a huge amount. It could cover almost one entire half of the arena in ankle-deep sand. He shouted as he spread his own hands, almost laughing. Let's make each other feel alive.
Kaga box. Hiruzen was intently observing the match, trying to make out Naruto's plan.
Naruto was mad if he wanted to fight Gara at full power, but there was a glint in Naruto's eyes that told him that this was part of a plan.
Orochimaru was barely refraining from laughing in joy. He couldn't have asked for a more entertaining match.
He doubted that even Sasuke could have given such entertainment to him. He secretly signaled for his people to be ready.
The time for the invasion to start was drawing to a close. Stands.
Every rookie in Jonin Sensei watched in horror as Naruto asked Gara to come at him with full power.
He had basically just signed his death warrant, many thought. Sakura almost shrieked, "What is that idiot doing?"
Guy nodded grimly, "I have to agree with your student, Kakashi. Fighting the genin at full power seems to be an extremely bad idea." Kakashi gave no reply as worry began creeping in him. He could only hope Naruto had a plan to deal with that amount of sand. Sasuke intently watched with his Sharingan active, ready to spot any hand signs that Naruto might weave.
He would take any opportunity to copy Naruto's jutsu. Not once did concern rang for his teammate potentially facing his death. Arena. The crowd gasped at seeing the huge amount of sand rotating behind Gara in form of a vortex. Gara was grinning in a way that would have sent many shinobi running in the opposite direction, but not Naruto.
Naruto was prepared for this.
Take this, Uzumaki.
The vortex rushed towards with the force of a sandstorm.
Naruto narrowed his eyes and gathered his chakra.
He jumped almost impossibly high, clean above the rushing vortex, two Hiraishin kunai in hand. He threw one of them 20 meters behind Gara, completing the pattern he was going for. Gara was so deep into his bloodlust that he failed to take notice of the kunai arranged around him in a pentagon. The other one went 20 meters ahead of the kunai he just threw. As he predicted, the vortex changed direction and headed right for him when he was still in the jump. He thought he might have heard someone shouting his name, but he could have imagined it. Just as the vortex was about to hit him, he flashed to the last kunai he threw, momentarily entering safe zone.
Stands. Sakura could no longer hold her concern for her teammate.
Everyone watched in horror as the vortex almost swallowed, at which point Sakura shouted,
"Naruto!" She practically melted in relief when Naruto disappeared, reappearing at the kunai he just threw.
Looking back, she saw that everyone unconsciously relaxed from the tension.
Kakashi didn't know that he was holding his breath until he released it.
He had not seen such dangerous maneuvers in a long time. He was used to seeing his sensei do it like that, but Naruto, on the other hand.
It was strangely nostalgic, almost like seeing his sensei in action. Arena.
Naruto appeared at the kunai in a crouch, expression serious and eyes set on the sand vortex. Gara turned around and wasted no time in sending the vortex towards Naruto very gleefully, but this time, he split it in 4, so that it would converge on Naruto from 4 different directions. Naruto only needed 2 hand seals to make this work. He had already saturated the air with his chakra before, so his chances of success were high.
Tiger Bird. Suetun, Mizu Tatsumaki no Jutsu. Water Style, Water Tornado Technique.
Naruto converted the entire amount of chakra he had saturated the air with into water chakra. A giant spinning vortex made of water of his own seemed to suddenly come into existence around him. The 4 smaller vortexes of sand crashed into the vortex from 4 different sides. Naruto was rotating his water vortex at such a high speed that the sand that crashed into it was dispersed almost instantly upon contact, becoming wet and heavy.
Kaga Box. It is very surprising to see that he has a water affinity as well.
One strong enough to draw water from thin air.
Wasn't the Nidame known for the same feat? Orochimaru asked in genuine surprise.
Not every day he met ninja, let alone a genin, who could perform feat like some of the Kage.
Hiruzen nodded, a relieved smile appearing on his face. He did have a plan after all, he mused. Stands. The crowd was cheering Naruto on.
They thought that Naruto would escape using the Hiraishin, or worse, get crushed.
But then, a tornado of water came into existence around him from seemingly nowhere.
It protected Naruto from the sand perfectly.
The Jonin were once again wide-eyed, including Kakashi.
Kurenai shook her head. He drew water from the air around him. Most water users can't do even half of what he just did.
Guy and Lee were shouting. Such youthfulness.
Kakashi pointed out to his peers and the genin, whose eyes were wide with wonder at the display of power. Not just that, but that jutsu acted both as a defense and an offense in Naruto's favor. Sand becomes heavy when hit with water. So by hitting Gara's sand with water, Naruto negated the sheer control Gara had on his sand, ensuring his safety simultaneously.
No doubt, Gara would find wet sand increasingly difficult to control.
As Kakashi explained Naruto's move, Sasuke found himself getting increasingly frustrated.
Why was Naruto so powerful in comparison to him? Was he hiding this much all along?
He had to painfully admit, Naruto had dealt with Gara much more efficiently than he would have. He had nothing but taijutsu, speed, and the jutsu Kakashi had taught him to deal with Gara, which really wasn't much compared to what Naruto had. His fire was useless unless it was hot enough to turn sand into glass, which it wasn't.
He couldn't even copy Naruto's jutsu, for fuck's sake.
In addition to the absence of a water affinity, he needed to see all the hand signs to copy a jutsu. Naruto obviously had a very high water affinity to use a jutsu like that too in the absence of water and with only 2 hand seals. He knew Naruto had a large amount of chakra, but this was just ridiculous.
He was still not looking winded.
He clenched his fists so tight that blood seeped out. The cursed seal throbbed on his shoulder, but he forcefully pushed its influence back.
I will make your power my own, Naruto.
Just you wait.
Arena.
Naruto maintained the vortex for about 5 seconds, after which the sand stopped coming. Dispersing the vortex outwards with a flourish, he smirked at the results. All the sand that he had been attacked by was now wet, saturated with water and heavy.
It won't be as fast as before.
Gara watched in alarm as his sand collided into a water vortex that seemingly came out of nowhere. He realized too late, even with Mother shouting in his head, what Naruto had planned, but it was too late. Almost all the sand was wet now, and only a tiny amount was available to him, the only amount he was able to pull back before it was too late. He rotated it in the form of a ring around him to prevent it from getting any more wet.
Naruto didn't waste time admiring the effects of his jutsu. Forming the bird seal, he took a deep breath and let go. Suetun, Mizurappa.
Water style, violent water wave. A jet of water was expelled from his mouth, heading towards Gara with great force. Gara looked stunned as the sand automatically formed as a barrier in front of him, taking the brunt of the water.
Gara hadn't felt this helpless in a long time.
Uzumaki had a counter for his sand, which was a major part of how he fought. He could make his own sand, but that took him some time, which he didn't have.
He would have to do it nonetheless.
He molded a huge amount of his own chakra, sand particles slowly forming in front of him.
He couldn't help but let his excitement grow a little. It was hard to remember just when he had let loose like this the last time. Naruto smirked as the last of the sand fell in front of Gara, wet and unusable. He had taken into account that a sand user such as Gara would be able to form his own sand even if he negated it, which was exactly what Gara was trying to do now. Oh no, you don't. Boar Snake Dragon Ram. The kunai finally would come into play. Gara's choice of standing in one place would cost him dearly. Kaga Box. Very clever of him to have negated Gara's sand, Hokage Dano. I can't help but feel that Naruto-kun is well above the level of a Chunin, don't you think? Hiruzen smiled in pride as Naruto used the element of water to completely turn the tables on Gara. He couldn't help but be reminded of Tobirama-sensei. He was pretty much the same. His mastery of water was so unrivaled that he used to turn the battle in his favor in a place where there was no water. Considering that Naruto now had a Jinchuriki on the ropes without resorting to his own Bijou chakra, he was starting to feel the same. Naruto was well above the level of a Chunin. He doubted any Jonin could have turned the tides like Naruto did. Stands. Holy shit! Did you see that? Ino shrieked, pointing at Naruto as if she couldn't believe it. Shikamaru slowly nodded, still trying to make sense of how Naruto did what he just did. He took away Gaara's greatest advantage. Sakura was smiling with happiness. At first she had doubted Naruto could beat Gaara, but Naruto had shown that he could find a way around the impossible. Arena. Gaara was still concentrating on forming his sand when a light green shield rose up around him. He whipped his head from side to side, trying to figure out how it came into existence without him noticing. Then he felt it. He knew he was draining his chakra forming his sand, but the chakra drain was much larger than he usually felt. He then noticed the light green barrier was slowly turning into a darker shade. He looked down to his feet, noticing that he was standing in the center of a complex ceiling array shaped like a pentagon. His eyes widened in realization. This was a chakra-absorbing barrier. Naruto was smirking as he held up the ram seal. Uzumaki Fuinjutsu, Kisei Shohiki, Uzumaki Sealing Arts, Parasitic Barrier, was a success. This pentagonal barrier was designed by the Uzumaki clan to suck the chakra right out of their enemies. The best thing about this barrier was that the users only need to spend an initial amount of chakra to simply build the barrier, not maintain. The barrier maintained itself and grew stronger by sucking the chakra of the people trapped inside. This barrier was designed to be used by 5 people. But Naruto's dad had written in his notes that he was able to use this barrier all by himself with the help of his special kunai. The formula on the kunai acted as a sort of dimensional rift. Instead of sending himself through that rift, Minato sent his chakra to all the 5 points, thus successfully setting up the barrier. For Naruto, this was no problem at all. His chakra control was excellent and on a level that he could split his chakra and send it in different direction, through a dimensional slipstream, without any problem. And he had more than enough chakra to spare. Gara tried to use whatever sand he had built up, which was only a small amount, to break the barrier. Naruto called out, "It's fruitless, Gara. This barrier will take more than just physical attacks to break." Kaga Box. Incredible, simply incredible, Orochimaru breathed out in amazement. To be able to use Fuinjutsu like this, in conjunction to the Hiraishin, it was a testament to Naruto's genius and the incredible amount of power and skill that he had. Hiruzen was in the same state of awe, though he was able to keep it to himself. Minato was the only one who was capable of using barriers like this. For Naruto to replicate this feat, it spoke volumes of his mastery of the art. "You have a true gem in your forces, Hokage Dano," Orochimaru complimented. Though he was silently lamenting why he could not mark Naruto. Putting his curse seal on a Jinchuriki was something that even he didn't want to test. Hiruzen smiled in pride, "That I do, Kazekage Dano." Stands. The audience was in awe of the power and skill displayed by the last Namikaze. As soon as he had trapped Gara inside,
they had erupted into cheers that could be heard throughout the entire village.
Asuma stuttered out, "What power?"
He had only ever seen barriers of this magnitude used by a single person, and that was the yondaime. Kurenai simply gaped at the skill being displayed. Guy was shouting something about youthfulness again, so only Lee was listening to him.
Everyone had tuned out both of them.
Kakashi gazed in utter pride as he watched Naruto corner Gara and trap him inside his barrier. "Sensei, you would be proud of who Naruto has become," he whispered. He looked over to see the genin reactions. Sakura and Ino were cheering loudly, while Shikamaru and Shoji were leaning forward with smiles, Shoji's more vibrant than that of Shikamaru's, interested in seeing what Naruto would do next. He smiled at seeing their reactions.
"Naruto, you managed to make your comrades believe in you. Earlier, they may not have found you to be trustworthy, however today, you managed to convince them that they can trust you with their lives," Kakashi thought, pride inside him growing by the second. He glanced to the side, and found himself disappointed. He wondered, not for the first time since arriving to the stadium, whether or not he had made the right choice in choosing to ditch Naruto and train Sasuke for the finals. He was beginning to think he may have been wrong after all. Sasuke had clenched his jaw, his fists, and was watching Naruto dispatch Gara with efficiency he knew he didn't have. Naruto's way had been very professional. First, find the weakness. Second, exploit the weakness and take away the strengths. Finally, finish him off. He didn't even have words to express just how furious he was, both with Naruto and himself. He was furious with Naruto for being so much stronger than him. He was furious with himself for being so weak compared to Naruto. He wanted to be the strongest. Only when he was strongest would he be able to kill him. His Sharingan flashed. He wanted to copy all the techniques Naruto had to offer and leave him with nothing. Only he deserved to be the strongest, not him. Kakashi shook his head. Perhaps training Sasuke was a bad choice after all. Not surprising, considering the number of those type of choices he had made in his life. Sasuke looked like he would sooner kill Naruto and take his techniques for himself than call Naruto a friend and a comrade. Arena. Naruto watched Gara drop to all fours, no doubt the result of the barrier absorbing his chakra, which was now a dark shade of green. He dropped the barrier as soon as Gara looked he would pass out. He ran forward, making sure not to use a flash step. Gara was breathing heavily, trying not to drop in exhaustion. This was the first time he had suffered something like this, and all because of that damn Uzumaki. Rage began to boil inside as mother began screaming in his head. "Kill him, Gara. Kill him. Give me his blood. I want his blood." "Yes, mother," Gara agreed before looking up to glare at Uzumaki. He was about to take mother's power when he was suddenly sent flying, landing in a heap. Naruto had punched him on the nose with enough force to break it, and watched with some satisfaction as Gara was sent flying. He landed about 10 meters from Naruto, and Naruto feared that he had knocked the redhead out. But then Gara stirred, causing Naruto to relax a bit. Gara stood up on shaky legs, which Naruto took as a positive sign to initiate the last part of his plan. His fingertips on the right hand lit up in 5 purple, kanji characters. Kaga box. Orochimaru's eyes widened in panic. He knows that as well? I can't let him put that seal on Gara. He immediately gave his signal to start the invasion. Arena. Naruto was about run and slammed the seal onto Gara, making sure Shikaku didn't come out to play. Gara felt something wet on his face. He wiped his hand and took a look at what it was. A scream so chilling erupted from his throat, and Naruto took that as his chance. If he was late, he would never be able to put it on Gara again.